I think you have the wrong verbiage. You are not medicine. You're a supplement.
Mm.
You take medicine when you're sick,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Try to get better. You take a supplement to enhance something else.
Mm-hmm.
So you are like very much a lifestyle thought process that's holistic. So again, we're not a medicine company. Technically right now we're a supplement company with our functional coffee. We are supplementing to add to the quality of your life. If you take medicine, you're sick. So I think that's a different
I love
frame.
that shift in framework.
Yeah,
That's
it's
huge.
it's a different thought process.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to ALLSMITH, to another incredible episode where we forge mindset, movement, and meaning into the ultimate tool for human potential. Today's guest is a true captain of culture, a man whose mission isn't just to brew coffee. He's one of my best friends. He's the founder of Trident Coffee, a company that's redefining what it means to connect, to caffeinate, and to live life full steam ahead. None other than Eric Johnson. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Bryce, it's time to do it again, man. I'm excited to bring all the conversations we have off screen onto screen. So it's going to be a great time to spend with you and explore some deep thoughts and some fun stuff.
Totally, man. We've come a long way, right? Like in the beginning, it was a lot about learning, evolving. I mean, you think about the famous story of the bamboo plant. You plant the bamboo. It takes 5 years for that thing to even sprout slightly above the surface to see anything. And that's kind of where we started our conversation. You had started Trident. I was brand new to this space, brand new to the ideology. You've not only served as a close friend and a mentor, but now we're like just starting to see maybe a small seed of ALLSMITH and what it is and maybe what it could be. But what's so cool is like you've been there every step of the way. And so the fact that we get to bring you onto the show, into the all-encompassing studio and sharing conversation is like, it's fucking cool to me, man. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's tough because a lot of people, don't see the behind the scenes, all the work that goes into it. They kind of just see the highlight reels and success, but the amount of energy and effort that goes into building anything is pretty substantial.
Yeah.
And so it's, again, I've been there with you, you've been there with me, and kind of seen wins, losses, the little scorecard getting racked up. But it's one of those things where it's really cool when you can be around other people that maybe not know exactly what you're going through, but can be supportive, provide guidance, because that's what it's all about. It's like collaboration is everything nowadays. Like
Totally.
competition, yeah, if you go in that mindset, then it's either a win-lose. Vice, like what can we get to a win-win? And I think that's really powerful, especially with people coming up that I've seen in the business space, always looking for the win-win and not trying to put somebody down to get ahead. And so like with you, Daniel Hack, a lot of these guys in the space here, especially in San Diego, has been a really cool epicenter for young entrepreneurs. And so being surrounded by those people, it's super motivating. It always kind of keeps the edge sharp, but you're always looking for the win-win.
And I think you hit the nail on the head with the term connect, right? Like it's not about this space being too concentrated in health and wellness. I mean, Daniel's the founder and the owner of the Mad Beat. You're with Trident Coffee. I'm with ALLSMITH. We've talked about Q doing some really cool things in his space with men's coaching and, striving to be an amazing co-pilot of people's journeys in their transition from athletic development into entrepreneurship or life. We look at Jameson, his work with LSKD, as we've talked about in the past, putting on a fucking masterclass in community. And that term community synergizes with connect. This space is not so concentrated where everybody can't spread their wings and coexist at the same time and learn and evolve and support. And what's so interesting is when you look at the hierarchy of a human, and this is where you and I are going to start going deep for those of you guys listening. You hop into an elevator, hypothetically. The normal human's kind of looking around like, I'm bigger than that guy. I probably make more money than that guy. Oh, I've done this, I've done that. Like there's this comparative analysis. It's fucking bullshit. What if it's, man, that guy seems pretty cool. I'd love to get to know his story. I mean, you're such a storytelling man, a storytelling brand, like where you started with your military career, with this word story that seems so cliche, but has levels to the storytelling ideology. And it's like, actually, rather than all of us fighting each other like a UFC fight in a fucking elevator, how about we just like synergize, connect, and my famous phrase, seek to understand.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, like, we love cinema, we love books, we love TV shows because we're following story, we're following a character development.
Yes.
That's all of us.
That's entourage.
That's all, yeah.
That's character development, right? You look at Turtle's evolution from fucking pothead to, you know, this global
Going IPO
brand
with
investor.
this tequila.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so I think that's what we outsource the storytelling to media, to this and the other, vice, kind of living it ourselves. Like, every one of us has a story. Every one of us is on a hero's journey. And, you know, we downplay the sacrifice, we downplay the struggles, we downplay the things because all we normally see is other people winning. And we're scared to be vulnerable, like this is happening, X, Y, and Z. And you get down on yourself. Vice, just like rising to the occasion, being the hero of your own story. Because at the end of the day, that's what gets told. I mean, I think I shared with you that Alex Ramosi, like, the bigger the dragon, the better the hero, the better the story. Mm-hmm. So the more adversity you have to endure makes it for a better story. That goes with movies, that goes with TV shows, that goes with everything. Every component of storytelling, really, if it does as well, it's like, I think it's Joseph Campbell's Hero with 10,000 Faces. Mm-hmm. It's the hero's journey.
Yeah.
That's why we love Star Wars. That's why we love Harry Potter. That's why we love all these things, because they have to go through so much adversity to basically achieve what they're brought on this earth to do. And so the storytelling pieces gets downplayed by all of us. We're not realizing, like, hey, we all are our own heroes. Like, learn to play with that and learn to accept it, because when you do, then it's almost kind of freeing. You're not giving agency away to anybody else. You're not doing any of that stuff. Like, you are taking accountability. You're becoming the captain of your own ship, and it's really fun.
Yeah.
And so that's something for storytelling wise, is that we forget we are telling a story every single day about our own life. Mm-hmm. And most of the time people put on Instagram, it's the highlight. Mm-hmm. Vice, like, oh man, like and you are a perfect example. You've had a crazy amount of family losses recently, you know, over the last 5 years. You've lost your father, you've lost your mother. And here you are, dude, like, living your story, sharing it with everybody. That's what we want to see. And that's why social media can be extremely important to help facilitate that. But what I love about what you and I have and what you're building more is that it's more of a face-to-face thing too. Like, you can share stuff on social media. That's great. But those deep-rooted personal connections that are done in person, like, carry so much more weight. And so I'm excited that we get to kind of intertwine our stories together and grow and see where it turns into.
Yeah, totally. I love the way you said that too, because it's just like Matthew McConaughey says, I say it on every fucking podcast, which is like, it's a mystery looking forward, but science looking back. It's cool when you're watching Disney, Pixar, or some of these, you know, amazing movies or flicks, because you have this like intrinsic thought that, like, oh, it's going to work out at the end. It has to. Like, otherwise the movie doesn't make sense. Yeah. But when you're living entrepreneurship, you don't see light at the end of the tunnel in the beginning. And you think, like, man, I believe in this thing. I'm going to win. I'm going to figure it out. And it's like, you try to keep that belief. And then it's like, you accumulate rejection. You accumulate loss. You know, you go through breakups. You go through pain. And pain that nobody really understands, because pain is relative, right? Like, you know, that can be a loss of a friend, that could be financial, that can be physical, that can be loss of parents, where it's like, parents are unique because not everybody has them. So what a privilege, first and foremost. Huge gratitude to have such amazing parents like I did. But now it's just like, whoa, who do you actually trust? Where's the safety net? If everything fails, nobody's there. Wow. Right? And like, what's so cool is, like, you came into my life around that time. A few other amazing humans came into my life right around that time. I met my beautiful wife two years later after that time. And it's just like, whoa, life's not happening to us, it's happening for us. And when you develop that intrinsic little shift in ideology, entrepreneurship becomes exactly what you said, where it's fun, where it's like, I'm not so married to the outcome of sociological success now. I'm so married to, as Frank Sinatra said, I did it my way. And you're learning, you're evolving, you're realizing that every failure is actually a little bit of fertilizer towards that bamboo plant that I alluded to in the beginning. Because what I didn't say in that first part is that for the first 5 years, it stays on the surface. Nobody sees it. And then what happens? That 6th year, it grows 6 feet in less than 6 months.
Well, I mean, you can look back on all these things where growth is not always linear. It's not always exponential. You know, they have that roadmap where it's like what you think success looks like is just like a kind of a straight path up. There's no pitfalls. There's no failures. But I can't think of any person who has gone after life, come out unscathed, without any scars, without any, failings. I mean, that's kind of the part of growth, is that you have to try stuff. You have to put yourself out there. You have to figure out what works, what doesn't. And sometimes that takes time. You know, that is an accumulation of multiple experiments being run to test and get to a point where you are happy with the outcome and continue to grow and nurture that. So for us, I mean, at Trident, we started out with a concept, hey, we're going to be like a brewery, but for coffee instead of beer. And so liquid product was kind of our thought process, because we've seen the success of craft breweries in San Diego. And when we started to develop that, it goes well, but then COVID hits. Freight charges go up, cost of goods increases, all these other factors come into play that you weren't even thinking about occurring, 3-4 years ago when you're coming up with this idea. So adaptability is literally Darwin's mechanism of, evolution. It's not the strongest survive, it's the most adaptable. And so when you can look at that, know you're going to be taking hits constantly during any endeavor for greater good. And then it's just rolling with those as best you can. Sometimes they're really big gut punches and you have to like take a knee and just like, okay, that one really hurt. Or then as you learn through that, you learn to kind of take those punches, but no, it's not vindictive. Like life isn't trying to screw you over. I mean, you can look at it from a karma standpoint, you look at it from all these different things, but I truly believe that everything is about character development, turning you hopefully into the best version of yourself. And you have that fork in the road. Things keep happening to you, you can go south really quick. You can turn to drugs, you can turn to alcohol, you can make excuses for yourself to do bad behavior. It's like, oh man, life is so tough, it's doing this to me. Or you can say like, hey, everyone goes through something like this. I'm going to use it as fuel. I might need to take a break, take a little pause and like regroup myself, but I'm going to make it be additive, not subtractive. And so you can start building up those wins, and hate to say build up a little bit of those calluses to those gut punches. It just helps you endure and recover much quicker, because you're, okay, that was a hit, move forward. And so like we've taken a bunch of hits, and every time it's like, oh man, like it's over, the world's ending, this, that, and the other. You think it's catastrophic. And here we are, 8 years later. Probably been through 5 or 6 apocalyptic events back when I viewed it through those lenses, and we're still here. And so it's just, if you truly believe in it, you will always find a way to make it happen. And sometimes life gives you a nice little blessing and brings someone into your life that can really help. But at the end of the day, if you keep putting energy and effort forward, it's really hard to fail. Like if you just don't quit, it's really hard to fail.
What does Alex Hormozy say? It's not about winning, it's about outlasting.
I mean, that's kind of business most of the time, because a lot of people don't have the resilience to withstand the constant onslaught of no's, of rejection, of fear. And so if you can build up that strength, and that's why I truly believe failures are one of those things that just add to your character.
It's a subtle test.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Like, what's that famous story where Elon had $34 in his bank account on Christmas Eve?
Yeah, Tesla was about to take a nosedive
and
be
SpaceX.
Done.
And he had $34 apparently, and had to either split it between 2 companies or go all in on one.
I think it was 34 million. I think he had a little more than 34 bucks.
Oh, the story was the story was told to me.
I don't think 34 bucks is going to move the needle, but
totally.
Yeah, he had to make a choice, and he believed in both of them so much that he split it to save both of them. And he was able to get the board of directors and other investors to kind of match and pitch in. And so it's one of those things where it's really big risk, really big reward. But if you're always worried about failure and like, oh, this isn't going to work, then maybe your belief system in what you're building isn't strong enough.
Totally.
So,
I'm going to bookmark you there. Cheers to really big risk and really big reward. The first episode in ALLSMITH history where we crack a booch.
Okay, let's do it.
Cheers, my man. It's a good conversation and honest vulnerability, my man.
And for those of you who don't know, Bryce has like 20 of these at his house when we do sauna and cold plunge on Thursday nights. So
sauna and cold plunge. One of my favorite things about booch is that it's not so much where it's like it's detrimental or leads to being hungover. I'd love for them to sponsor ALLSMITH. It'd be badass because I love this ingredient profile of raw kombucha, pineapples, passion fruit, agave, ginger, basil, passion fruit extract, and yeast. Pretty good for your gut microbiome. Not terrible.
Yeah, I mean, studies more and more about alcohol in general are
poisonous.
Yeah, they're not great.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's part of the human experience. If you can do it and do it in a responsible manner and have fun, but it's not wrecking you.
Totally.
Because I'm facing the thing with my mother, who drinks a glass or two of wine every single day, and it's starting to develop what I feel like into like dementia and Alzheimer's. So again, maybe type 3 diabetes of the brain, this and the other. So she's starting to get more forgetful, all these things. I'm just trying to get her to stop. And, I'm telling her X, Y, and Z. I'm giving her all the data. I'm trying to like commit with her emotionally. And she's still like, it's just a pattern of habit. Like it just makes her feel good. So I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, I'm like creating more and more memories with my mom right now because like, we don't know how much time we have with our loved ones.
Totally.
But yeah, I enjoy it. I think it's one of the things that you can celebrate with and not feel too guilty about it. And so, and also another great San Diego brand. San Diego is an amazing epicenter of craft beverage. And so between beer, kombucha, and cold brew, and it's just a great place to be around, surrounded by like-minded individuals who are really putting their best foot forward to create an amazing product.
Yeah, it's very well said. I also think like there's an honesty associated with all of it in the sense of deep, meaningful connection. When you talk to some of the oldest people in the world, at least from some of the interviews that I've seen, we can build buffers, we can train, we can sauna, we can ice, we can walk, we can get our morning sunlight, we can have a beautiful morning and evening routine. But where I fell victim to is I was so robotic to this health culture that I had these golden handcuffs on. And I did all the things right. But then I'd do a blood panel. My testosterone was low. My joy and fulfillment wasn't high. I was a slave to service of other people and people pleasing. I had chronic inflammation because I was training 4 to 6 hours a day. And the biggest missing link was depth in human connection. And I'm not saying that alcohol has to be a part of that. It's one of the things that I love about sauna and ice. One of the things I love about breathwork, wellness events, kavas, another great tool that people use. But human connection is huge. And now with these little computer boxes in our pocket, with iPads, with screens being these things that give not only dopamine hits, but fill our bank account. Human connection is so meaningful and so important. And I know we talked about community and connection being like the pillars of today's conversation. People don't buy just your product. They don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. People will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And going back to what you mentioned about your mom, I'm so fortunate that my parents gave me this thing called belief. No matter what we pursued, my brother and myself and my sister, they believed in us. And if we can have those side conversations on those beautiful Thursday nights, or, these offshoot conversations in the gym or at wellness events or on a podcast, how beautiful is that to know that, like, dang, I don't always know what to do, where to go, but I know that ALLSMITH is going to help pick me up. They're going to give me a pat on the back. They're going to give me a hug. They're going to listen. They're going to hold space to help guide me towards my peak expression. But that didn't start as ALLSMITH. That started as Bryce just meeting this amazing human with Trident Coffee and us talking about this thing called Fika, which is social connection basically during a pseudo coffee break in Sweden. And then realizing like, whoa, not only do you have an amazing coffee brand, but you're so convicted to your values of like functional, great ingredients, greatly sourced coffee beans, trying your best to mitigate all the toxicity in the world, the microplastics, the glyphosate, all the spraying things that we're seeing on agriculture. And you're just like, you know what? I can probably 10x my business if I sell my soul to the devil. But quite frankly, I'm going to hold myself to my convictions. I'm going to stay true to true community and connection. But also, I'm going to be in pursuit of constantly trying to scale my business without throwing all the sugar, the additives, and all the things that, yeah, it increases shelf life, but it decreases actual life.
Yeah, so this is a fun topic because you're talking to an engineer. That's what I got my bachelor degrees in, and that's what I did in the Navy was engineering work. So we have a very different thought process about how to basically solve problems. And the goal is basically you have an input, you have a black box, you have an output. What's funny is that when you look at it and you come from a creative side, like what is art? It's an expression of truth to that individual, right? When you see a painting, you always ask, like, what was the artist thinking, or what was he feeling, or were they feeling? And so like blending art and science is really my best way to get closer to truth. And I'm extremely curious.
I like that.
And so I have a really good background and foundation in solid engineering thought process. You know, you have the scientific method, you have experiments you can run, this and the other. At the end of the day, however you're feeling, you just write it and express it as you see fit. And that's art. And that's a craft. And that's what we just kind of mentioned here with some of these brands that are transparent about it. It's their best expression of their craft is what they want to provide for the consumer. And so that's a really fun place for me to play because it's relatively new, but it feels so right. Like science doesn't really care how you feel. It's A plus B equals C, like very linear. There's not much room for any emotion, any thought process outside of logic. But when you throw art into it, that creates a different realm, maybe even different reality, if you would. Like, where does our consciousness come from? Where does our sense of right and wrong come from? Where do all these things come from? If it's just strictly a engineering mindset, you know, those people aren't necessarily the most fun to talk to. You know, very analytical, and like if it doesn't fit in the box, then get rid of it. But maybe the
vanilla.
box is 4D. Maybe there's another dimension to that box that we don't see. And what is that providing depth-wise to the conversation? So what I love about these conversations that we have is that it's more depth. There's more creative space to explore and be curious. It's not an A plus B equals C conversation.
Yeah, and what you're saying too, what's freaking dope is that like numbers are numbers. They're necessary in some capacity. And I love to say everything that's measured doesn't always count. Everything that counts isn't always measured. But then you pause for a second. You're like, where do these numbers actually come from? Were they funded by somebody with a different agenda? What is the famous line? There's lies and there's statistics.
Probably.
Right? and like they're almost one and the same because you can manipulate statistics based on the agenda or the outcome. And so, ironically, last night I was watching an old episode of The Barbershop. And Rick Rubin happened to be on the show, the co-founder of Def Jam Records, one of the most famous producers ever. He's on there with LeBron. He's on there with Maverick Carter, LeBron's business partner. Rich Paul, who's like the #1 agent in the world right now, covering and being there for all these NBA players. And then ironically, because it was 2019, P. Diddy was on the show. And he goes, he has a moment where the wine probably tapped in a little bit. And he goes, you know, I'm against the grain a little bit. I'm not normalcy. Like, I'm not a guy that just sits there and looks at the numerical values and all the time. Because then we're trying to make something great. When you're trying to make something great, you're making it for others. And then Rick Rubin chimes in. He goes, yeah, man, like when hip hop was at its peak, it's when a bunch of us were just like in the room, having a couple drinks, smoking some weed, maybe doing some little offshoot, just like fun shit. But we were like making shit for each other that we thought was dope. It was the epitome of art. And Rich Paul chimes in and he's like, yeah, man, like he goes against the traditional norm of like modern day education and kind of pushes back against that. But then there was this genius moment, honestly. I know P. Diddy's everywhere right now and like he gets pushed back upon, and I do not condone his behavior by any means. But he actually had this really profound idea that I appreciated, or maybe it was more of an opinion. He goes, Rich, like you're totally right. Like we think against the grain, the LeBrons of the world that jump to the NBA out of high school, we're few and far between. Like we're rare. He's like, however, you need the geniuses around as well. You need the people that have the education, the law degrees, X, Y, and Z things also. And that just leads me into the conversation that we kind of dance around all the time, just because you mentioned engineer. And you know, even though I don't have formal education in that arena, I believe that if anything is isolated by itself, it kind of connects to almost everything in the universe.
Well, you can look at it one way. I think one of my best skill sets is recognizing patterns.
Yes.
So if you have something in isolation, but there is something that is drawing it to another thing in isolation. And so mapping out those patterns is definitely a skill set, because then you see how that little cog fits in the greater universe of things. And so it's extremely important to be able to recognize that. And that's kind of where some genius creativity kind of lies, is like, all right, how do I sequence, like if you're going back to Rick Rubin, how do I sequence a song to have the right hook, the right feel? Where do I add the bass? Where do I add this? Where do I add the vocals? And so that is pattern recognition at its finest. And, you know, one of my favorite DJs, Avicii, was phenomenal at that. Like you would take, took Zach Brown Band, he took all these other great artists who are not in his genre, and piece it together to create something so beautiful and like literal art. And so it's so impressive when I see people that can do that. And you know, the way I do it is very different. It's not musical talent at all
Yet.
but no, I'm not venturing into that world. That's probably gone. But when you can do that by yourself, you can appreciate it in others when you see genius. And I think that's what art is so imperative in this world, is that it may not be for you, but you can still appreciate it because you know the depths that person went through to take it from the ether, take it from their brain somewhere. It came from somewhere, process it, analyze it, and then put it out. Like that is such a rare gift. And that's what I think is so cool about entrepreneurship, is that's what it is.
It's carving a path with a fucking machete.
Oh,
there's no path. And what's also beautiful about it is, maybe 5 years ago, I found what was John Muir's favorite lake. It was Lake Ediza up in Mammoth. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take this trail. My brother at the time was hiking the John Muir Trail. He was going a little bit of the Pacific, the PST as well. And he was going from Mount Whitney all the way up to Yosemite. He took a little break in Mammoth, which is where we've always spent time as a family. And I ended up being like, you know what? He was leaving Reds Meadow Campground, as was I. I drove to the Agnew Meadows trailhead and I hiked up the mountain. I was the only person at that Lake Ediza when I got there. But here's the beauty. You can't drive there. You can't fly there. What makes Lake Ediza unique and beautiful is that you have to hike a fucking marathon to get there. In altitude, with your pack, with your water, with your food. And in my case, I just did it by myself. And I stole that from Colin O'Brady's, the 12-hour walk. And I just needed it for me. That was the planting of the bamboo seed for me of entrepreneurship, of like, you know what? We're going to do the thing. I didn't know it yet, but that's where I first felt that feeling that is very similar to what I feel now. And the reason why I bring that up is that you were overseas. You were serving your time in the military. And in your off time, you have this amazing founding story of where the ideology of Trident came from. I know that story. but not everybody's heard that story. So I'd love for you to share it because it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So I ended up doing 4 deployments in 5 years. My community, again, engineers, architects, going overseas, building camp infrastructure, running supplies, contracts, you name it. I did quite a bit over there. But what was so cool is that no matter what culture I went to, I was in Israel, I was in Afghanistan, I was in Iraq, coffee and tea was always something that was done like prior to every meeting when I met with village elders, generals and colonels from other partner nations. And so, but what I loved about it, it was literally just a bridge to connect with. You know, you sit down for 10, 15 minutes, and then the more you talk to them as a human, you realize we have so much in common. And kind of that facilitated such great relationships. You know, I didn't speak their language, was not part of their culture. But
where were you?
I mean, so the first iteration was in Israel. And so it was Turkish style coffee before every meeting. And if those who've been to Israel, they're also like, they roll their own cigarettes, like tobacco's a big thing over there, but like coffee was before every single meeting. And so you sit down, like I had to go get supplies and materials for our construction projects. I'm out in the middle of this quarry in the middle of the Israeli desert and sit down with this, basically the manager of that quarry. It's like, I need so many, you know, pounds of rock to build this road on this base. And, you know, sit down, give them the description of what I need. We have a conversation first. Okay, come back in a few days. We'll discuss more. So I have to convince this guy over several meetings that like, hey, I need almost $500,000, $300,000 to $500,000 worth of product from you. And I don't have any money. Some guy in Germany is going to pay you when the time is 30 days comes. You're going to get like a wire of money sent to your account. You got to trust me on this. And so that takes a lot of rapport building to get that kind of trust established.
Was that your first introduction to like sales and like creating buy-in? Like just being a young guy trying to figure it out with your job?
I had nothing. I had no credit card. I had my military ID, and I had a few connections of guys in Israel that I was working with that like put me in touch with these guys. And so
the reason why I bring that up is because I don't mean to interrupt, but I do want people to understand that like you don't know what you don't know. And it's important to enroll yourself in the human experience of service and then be like, you know what? I don't know how this conversation is going to play out, but I'm going to go embark myself and be fully present in this unique moment in time. Little did you know that it was going to unlock reservoirs of a skill set that leads to Trident Coffee. You don't know that at the time.
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the sweet cream cold brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level.
Well, I mean, that was just the mission.
Yeah.
We had to build a road, and I needed material for it. So I'm driving all over Israel to talk to like multiple vendors and get all these things done. But like, I have nothing to show for it. I don't have any money. I have no credit card. I have no way to buy it from them there. It was built off of a relationship and trust to say, this person, you know, thousands of miles away is going to pay you in 30 days. So that kind of just unlocked me the ability to go have faith in the process that it's going to work. And just go do what I needed to do. It was my job. Like I had to do that. If I didn't, the job wouldn't get done. And so it was kind of funny because when I left, the gentleman I was working with he was in Europe, in Germany. He was basically kind of my direct superior that sent us to that mission. He's like, I need you to come back. I was like, dude, I just got home. He's like, the guy that's there now is not doing shit. Like he's not developing anything. He's not getting any product. Like he's just not moving. He's not getting the project done. I was like, well, that's kind of on him. Like I knew what I needed to do and I did what I needed to do to get it done. And so it just showed me there's levels to willingness of people to go forth and do the job. And you see that in workplaces. You have people who basically don't care, little bit lazy. If it's a little bit tough, they just stop. And so that kind of thing where for me was like, okay, I may not know this job very well. I may not, but I'm going to figure it out. And that is entrepreneurship. Like you don't know where you start and where you end is so different. And there's so many paths you can take, but at the end of the day, you got to get the job done. And so that was kind of my first iteration of, can I execute? Can I deliver on something that I've been tasked with? And so that was Israel. And then in Afghanistan, a lot of it was just KLE meetings with people, again, trying to build roads, trying to build canal systems, trying to establish commerce for the locals so that when we left, they could kind of take over. And again, very different cultural impacts. But I just kept seeing that the more I talked with these people, they had very similar mindset or very similar kind of goals in life that we had. They wanted a family. They wanted to protect and provide for their family. They wanted safety. They wanted security. And so you realize, yes, but tying the cultural lens behind the religious lens, behind language lenses, humanity is very similar in what they want.
You took the word right out of my mouth. I was going to talk about being human.
Yeah. And so, yes, unfortunately, we get separated. Yeah, us versus them, this versus that. And then, you know, when the language starts to change and puts you pitted against each other, that's when some weird things happen. Vice, if you can find ways to collaborate and work together on a common goal, that's when humans are at their best.
And that's the genius that you possess. This took me to the part of the conversation that I was most excited for, which is when you get into the sauna, it's the all truth teller.
Yep.
When that motherfucker gets 15 to 23 minutes in and you're 200 plus degrees in and you're rubbing your ears, you're rubbing your eyes, you're uncomfortable, you're squirming. It started as all fun and games, then it got real uncomfortable. I like getting there sooner rather than later, just because, I don't know, I just like it.
Well, if any of those have been in the sauna with Bryce, there's a lot of water that gets poured on to expedite that uncomfortable feeling. Thursday
nights, 9:30 p.m., ALLSMITH headquarters. You are all welcome if you're ever in San Diego. Shoot me a DM, we'll get you there. My wife's going to kill me for this, but it's going to be great.
Bring a towel.
Bring a towel and some hydration, please. But what I'm hearing here, Eric, is that you learned how to connect out there. That word seems to keep coming. Like it should be tattooed on mine of your forehead. Connection via roads. Connection via lack of communication, different languages, different ideologies, different religions, but also understanding that the core values of being human, of like protect, provide, and experience, all seem to keep floating to the surface. And one of the missions with Trident Coffee is to bridge the world. But how do you figure out the definition or what it means to bridge the world in such a divided era where we've got left versus right, hot and cold? We talked about sauna and ice. Like, how can coffee be a medium for connection in such a polarized culture in modern day society?
It's tough. So you have to, again, I'm more analytical brained. I'll try to almost turn that switch off, because at that point you can't connect with people solely based on analytics.
Real quickly, based on that conversation last night that I heard P. Diddy and Rick Rubin talking about on The Barbershop, if anybody hasn't listened to it, The Barbershop's on HBO. It's with LeBron and Maverick Carter. Fucking awesome. He talks about that. He's like, man, if you try to out-logic music, you're fucked.
Yeah.
But if you're literally just like trying to feel the music, you're trying to trust your intuition, and this actually gets turned off a little bit, you now can go be a pro.
Yep.
And it gets scrutinized a little bit because, like you said, there's levels to the game. In order to turn this off, you might need some alternative substances on occasion.
Yep.
But there's levels to that game. Too much of something, not good. It's like, making a cake. Too much of an ingredient, too much salt, too much baking soda, you fuck it. But all of a sudden, it's like if you figure out the right dosage, you can also make a masterpiece. So it goes back to where we started our conversation around, like, how much risk can you manage in the pursuit of trying to make something that's never been made before?
I mean, that's why I gave you that book a couple years back, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Beautiful.
I got exposed to that in college. And long story short, the premise of it is that you have two forces competing So this duality, again, you went back to right versus left, conservative versus liberal, whatever. There always seems to be this duality of forces at play. You kind of have your muse, which is your inspiration, the good, the expression of art, the expression of truth, and you kind of have this like devil figure that is doing everything possible to keep you down.
The enemy is always going to lure you.
Yep. It's through temptation. Yeah, through temptation, this, that, and the other. And so with the War of Art, you know, Stephen Pressfield is a writer. And he explained this from the standpoint of like writer's block. How do you break through that? How do you break through that barrier to tap into the muse, to get the creativeness, to get the truth out of you? And it's probably similar to what, you know, those guys were talking about on the shop, where if you try to mess with it too much or you try to force it, it's not authentic. Where do you find this frequency tap in to let it just flow? And that's like flow state, like Laird Hamilton, when he's writing that wave, the millennial wave, he's like 1 millimeter off and I'm dead. He's going to get crushed by that wave. But something happens, some either neurochemical reaction taps into the whole body and it's just in flow state. And like that to me is when you can tap into that, that's where the magic happens. And it's, again, you can say you can go to ulterior modes of consciousness through psychedelics, through whatever. But if you can figure out a way to do that more like just more routine, if you can go in and out almost kind of on command, which is very difficult to do, but that takes learning your body, that takes trust in the process of like, all right, I'm going to put myself in uncomfortable positions to see how it feels. I'm going to get into the cold. I'm going to get into the hot. I'm going to work out hard. I'm going to have uncomfortable conversations with people because that is part of the process to tap into where truth gets expressed. So it's very fun. I mean, I learned a lot of that from uncomfortable conversations overseas because, you know, we're working with these people. We're there to help support them. And, you know, they may not have felt that or sensed it or this, and they're like, one of the Iraqi colonels like fought against us in the first Gulf War in, you know, the 90s, fought against us during the second invasion. Now we're working with him to stop ISIS. And it's like that level of trust isn't necessarily quickly granted because he spent almost 2 decades of his life against us. And so, but you can't do it with logic. You have to do it based on emotions.
What's interesting about what you're saying, though, is that I hope I verbalize this appropriately. The magic of the universe lies at the intersection of logic and emotion, which is flow. And I really do believe, me and our close friend Q have talked about this, it's the beauty of masculine and feminine. I'm going to try to out-logic everything and really think out a clear, concise plan. My wife's going to be flowy, and she's going to feel things emotionally and intuitively. I fight the fuck out of that.
Yeah.
She fights the fuck out of my logic. And then when both of us surrender our guard, somewhere in the messy middle is the magic that we see within, like we talked about earlier, Disney, Pixar, some of these really cool things.
The Matrix has the best representation, in my opinion, of and it's so subtle, like unless you actually research it, the fight of masculine and feminine, because the first movie you don't really tap into it too much, but the second movie when he meets the architect and he's like, you will do this because if you don't, everyone dies. And it's very analytical. It's like, we've done this before. I've seen you 1,000 times. All your predecessors, you know, fought against me and then they succumbed to reason. But what you see in the first and second movie is that Neo actually creates more of a relationship with the Oracle, who's the feminine energy. And he puts more faith in her chaos, the uncertainty of the outcome. And then when the architect and Oracle meet at the very end of the third movie, basically the architect's like, did you know this was going to work? She's like, nope, I had no idea it was going to work out. But it was like them coming together. And then, you know, each of them had their own kind of impact on Neo, the main character. And he basically was fighting back between the masculine and feminine energy. And it's such a subtle thing. Like, I don't think I definitely did not recognize that the first probably 5 times I saw the movie. It was someone was writing about this conflict specifically. But again, it goes back to the duality. It goes back to those push and pull, the ebb and flow, everything like that, like good, bad, whatever. But that's a fun one, the masculine, feminine energy kind of dance, if you would. But Matrix is a perfect representation of that battle to a T.
I mean, I love the way you said that. The duality is huge. Because, I mean, we talked about, you know, over here is good, over here is bad, just to make it very simple for our listeners. You're always being pulled in both of those directions. Here's what I think we should do for the brand. However, here's what's worked in the past, you know, vice versa. Here's my opinion, here's their opinion. It's a tough dance, but the dance is where the uniqueness takes place. Mm-hmm. And it's also where the deconstruction of ego takes place, mm-hmm. because the ego can be so valuable, because you can pause and you can be like, man, how I got from A to B, it worked. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if you're a stubborn ass like myself, why would I change that? Mm-hmm. But then all of a sudden you're realizing how I went from A to B is not how I get from B to C. This is a new chapter of life. I actually have to surrender. Different levels. I have to surrender and deconstruct my ego and like, man, I fought that so hard. I'm sure you did too. I'm sure other people listening can relate to that. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, if I ask for help, now I'm showing weakness. That can be weaponized against me. If I share the peek behind the curtain that I don't have it all figured out, and I run this podcast and I have all these things, whatever the preconceived notion is by the world. But then you eventually get to the point where you're like, where you and I think we are now, thank you, Mark Manson, we simply don't give a fuck anymore. Like, it's not about trying to prove something. It's about like, no. I'm in this to authentically and genuinely love people and guide them towards their peak expression. I'm figuring it out just like you. I've just had some unique experiences that maybe you haven't had. And you've had some too. And we can kind of share and play ping pong across the table with that. But you've done it for a really long time. It started overseas. You brought it over here, and you could have very easily been like, you know what? I have this organizational, logical mindset. I can go be an engineer anywhere and go make a fuck ton of money. Mm-hmm. But instead, you decided to trust that heart's whisper, that soul's whisper of like, you know what? I'm meant for more. I don't believe that I can fall into alignment with, you know, the X's and O's of following the trajectory of somebody that's trying to run a Fortune 500 company. Like, I want to do it my way. I want to do it fun. I want to do it explorative. I want to do it connective. It's not always been, like you said, this linear upward trajectory, but it's also been like who you've become. I mean, even in the short time that I've known you, like, whoa, this dude's fucking dope. And it's like, you haven't always been that. I'm sure there's times where you're brushing your teeth, you look yourself in the mirror, like, man, I made some tough decisions these last few months. I don't like me. I've been there. But it's like, now I feel like you're finding this unique flow and this unique piece of like, I don't have it figured out, but I'm well on my way. What kind of took place in your journey that helped callous you to get to the point of like, fuck my ego. Like, I'm the man in the arena. I'm going to take both the praise and the criticism, but I'm going to keep going to try to fortify this Trident brand to bring people together to the best of my ability.
It is extremely difficult to, you know, have kind of the weight on your shoulders constantly. And so you're always trying to figure out ways to deal with that and handle the weight. And just know that you're not perfect. You know, there's going to be decisions that you make that with hindsight, yes, you could have done something differently. With this information, had you had it, things may have turned out differently, but you don't know. That's part of the process of growth and turning you into the person that I think you're supposed to be, right? I always look at this, it's extremely unfortunate, but it's a great guide rail for me, is that I'm always disappointed in myself because I know I'm capable of so much more. Mm-hmm. And so that gap of where I am to where I know I can be, that potential gap is the driving force for motivation for me to keep going. I know there's still a lot left in the reserve. I know there's a lot left in my capabilities of delivering on all these things that I want to provide, of the connection, community, character, health, and wellness to people, because I see the pain that people go through on a daily basis with taking so much pharmaceutical interventions for X, Y, and Z. And they're not living a quality of life that I know that we all can. And it's a sacrifice for me because I don't get to live the best quality of life. I have to work the long hours. I have to take all the things that the business takes and like put it on my shoulders. Mm-hmm. I still have great people that are able to help facilitate a lot of the day-to-day stuff, but the overarching burden is on your shoulders. And so it's one of those things. I get it. I know there's sacrifices that actually have to be made to make this come reality, and getting to the point where it's okay. Like, I used to take it super personally.
Yeah, me too.
I used to just be so upset and so frustrated, and you know, I'd get barriers up. I would be short with people. I would be more harsh around other people instead of just, hey, this is all part of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want this thing to grow and thrive and live, you have to take the bad just as much as you have to take the good.
Yeah.
And you have to get through the bad, because nothing great comes without severe hardship.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is if anyone is interested in entrepreneurship, you will find out what you're made of very quick.
Yeah. The man that I've become and what I've learned in the last 7 months fully into ALLSMITH now, where I fully decided, hey, if you want to take the island, burn the fucking boats, to echo Tony Robbins. Man, you learn so much when you go all in, because you have NFC, no fucking choice.
Yep.
And it's like, it's not about like, oh, if this fails, I'll fall back on that. It's like, man, you're bootstrapped or busted, you know? And like, what I want to pick your brain on a little bit is like, you started with this beautiful idea and a story. Then it became reality. But from reality, it was more than just product development and trying to figure out a direct-to-consumer or wholesale account. It became a brick and mortar, which means now you're in real estate. Now you're understanding negotiation. Now you're understanding cash flow. Now you got to bring on a team to get people into that brick and mortar, which means you need marketing and advertising, which means you also need to be a graphic designer to get things onto your cans, to get things onto what became later the functional brew, which we've got right here, the functional coffee, which I'm really excited to talk about, like how we got to that and like the beauty behind the scenes of like what that is and where I think it can go. But it's like, how many fucking hats did I just describe? Right? You're
Almost
one,
every one.
right? You're one guy.
Yep.
And it's like, aside from all that, you're also the CPA, you're the financier, you're the public speaker, you're the guy in front of the camera, you're forward facing, you're behind the scenes taking all the heat. And like, I don't know, I say this often to a few friends that like everybody loves to give advice to a brand entrepreneur. Oh, you should do this, you should do that. They have no idea how much it costs. My famous line right now being entry level is like, you just don't get it. The weight like is incomparable, but I love it too. It's so much fun. It's so freeing. It really is the epitome of being alive. But how do you create transparency around the highs and the lows, trying to self-fund, taking on some money on the outskirts, and then staying true to your core values?
I'd say it's extremely difficult when you have to wear all those hats and you have to switch your brain from so many different aspects of the business. Like, I think that's one of the best skill sets I've learned, is to be able to shift gears so quickly. It's exhausting, and like I need some downtime for sure, but to be able to step into every facet of business and be able to have communication with a marketing team who is very much the artsy type, provide good feedback to them, not just, I don't like it. They don't know how to deal with that, you know? Then to go to the CPA side, the finance side, be able to speak about all the things in regarding that space, then go to graphic design, then go to product development and ingredient profiles and this and that and water profiles. There's so many facets of what we've done.
And what you didn't even mention is legalities.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody wants to come after the logo, the trademark, all the fucking things. It's just like, guys, I've got enough on my plate. That's exhausting.
No, I used to get extremely upset about it because I always felt like there was something else added to the weight. And at the end of the day, it's like, I feel like it's there to make me stronger now. You know, that
now it's a gift.
Yeah. You have to reframe how you look at challenges, because you look at everything as a challenge and as like something against you. If you take it personally, man, it will cripple you.
Totally. Right before my mom passed, almost 1 year ago now. Wow, I didn't even think about that. I was bitching to her one day of like, man, what's it like to have a life? What's it like to have a life without problems? And she's like, Bryce, you wouldn't want that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm craving peace.
Yep.
And my mom just like echoes on the phone. She's like, Bryce, within every problem lies opportunity. Like, you have to reframe that into like, would you learn this lesson without the problem? And I was like, dang, why are you so much smarter than me? Why do I always have to learn the hard way? And it's like, whoa, pain seems to be the tool that changes most people. And I can feel myself like getting teary-eyed thinking about that. Like,
I see it now.
It's one of those things that's just like, man, like, we can talk on a TED Talk or we can talk on a podcast, people can hear it, but like when you feel that pain has to be the thing that forces you to change, it sucks. But it's like on the other side of that, you're like sharpening your axe and you're becoming a better human. Now when I look at problems, I'm not like, oh my gosh. I'm like, whoa, this is really cool. Now do I not only get to like learn a new skill and go down a different path, but I get to like ask better questions. I get to look into deeper, more meaningful resources. I get to show vulnerability to people that thought that I had it figured out. Now I get to like reach out to them for their advice. And it's just like, man, it like unlocks all these different levels to the game that I personally didn't even know existed. Super cool.
I mean, that's the whole point, is that humans necessarily won't change unless there's a catalyst, right?
Yes.
There has to be a force implied to create change. I mean, if everything's status quo, you have equilibrium, something has to be added to the system to change that equilibrium.
Nothing changes if nothing changes.
So if you're cruising through life, and especially if like you've got most things figured out, you're content, but like there's that drive that you want something more, don't be pissed that something gets thrown into your thing that forces you to become more.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not always going to come gold wrapped and like, oh, here's $1 million lottery ticket for you to become more. It's like, no, that's sometimes 99% of the time it's going to be painful.
It's so funny you say that. One of my closest friends, Mike Yeager, is the lead pastor at Awaken Church. I was like complaining to him one day of like how much I have on my plate. And he goes, you know, man, I get it. Like, I got a lot on my plate too. I hear you. He's like, but didn't you ask for this? Mm-hmm. You asked to be a more well-rounded human. You asked to meet the woman of your dreams. You asked to try to build a family. You asked to build the podcast. You asked for apparel and services rendered and events and all these things. He's like, I totally get that it's a lot. And it's like drinking from a fire hose right now because it's all brand new. But he's like, you asked for this. And he's like, I think God hand delivered something to you that like, now it's just like, you got to figure it out, man. And like, I remember at the time I was like so resentful of him.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
He doesn't get it.
I just had this like curmudgeon-y, like the dude from Home Alone that like touches the doorknob.
Joe
like,
Pesci.
yeah, he's like, he's just going off the rails. And I'm like, yeah, I was that guy for a few days. Yeah. And on the other side of that, I was like, Mike, I don't have any words for you. Just have a hug. Yeah. You're right. You're totally right.
It never comes in the form that you want it to
come. It never does, dude.
But give it time and it will manifest into a new skill set, a new adaptability to making you stronger, better, faster, whatever the case may be. I mean, that's the whole point of strength training, right?
Totally.
You don't just pick up the same weight for a year and expect to be stronger.
No.
There's adaptation that needs to occur. You
totally.
need to progressive overload.
You need stress.
Yeah. And I think it's so uncomfortable. And I get it. People don't want to endure it. But some of the best humans I have seen have gone through the toughest of times.
For sure.
And they have come out the other side, not unscathed, but at peace, because they have gone into the arena. They have fought that battle. And they come out a different human being, more resilient and more compassionate too.
Totally.
Because when you go through that much pain, it's hard to not see and feel the compassion in others when others are going through tough times.
Totally. What I wanted to kind of reintroduce is that biblical story of Job.
Yep.
So God is having a conversation with the devil, and they're kind of dancing back and forth, having this comparative kind of heavy tensionous conversation from my understanding of the story. And God goes, hey, I've got this human. he seems to be doing everything right. He does the right thing when nobody's watching. He prays. He takes care of people. He loves his family. And the devil goes, oh, interesting. I wonder if he'll still do that when I marinate him with temptation. I strip him of all of his joy and fulfillment. I take away all of his money and riches. I kill everybody around him to the point where he's deep, depressive, anxious. Let's see if he's really going to make the right choice then. And God goes, okay, let's play this experiment. And Job goes through, from my understanding, almost, or if not more, of a decade of just like traumatic experience after traumatic experience after traumatic experience. Breakups, injuries, the death of loved ones, all of his financials just completely stripped away. And I'm very fortunate because Mike shared this story with me when I was in the midst of it. 8 years of that for me. And I couldn't help but turn my back on the man upstairs, turn my back to the entire world and think, you know what? I'm going to go inward. I'm going to build this oasis at home. I'm going to focus on health, wellness, and mindset. And I'm just going to stiff arm the world. And it created this unique relatability that at that time I wasn't aware of the story of Job. Mike put this onto my radar. And he kind of, he did a beautiful job of not forcing religion down my throat, where I had a very unique relationship with God and religion at the time. He kind of dangled a carrot of like, hey, let's just make it to tomorrow. That Navy SEAL mindset of like, just make it to your next meal. And in the pursuit of that, he was like, you seeing light at the end of the tunnel yet? And I'm like, no, man, it doesn't exist. Fuck that. And all of a sudden, like, over the course of time, he kind of just like teased me a little bit. He's like, hey, you want to come to church? I'm like, no, man, I'm not really into it. No, I don't really like that. I don't really like this. I don't really like that. Blah, 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 blah. And it was like that ideology, once again, of like life's happening to me, not for me. Because I wasn't seeing the gratitude of what was unfolding right in front of my eyes. All of a sudden, we had like a core group of like 4 guys that was coming over once a week. We'd have some cool conversations. We'd have some cool food. Look where that was then and what it's kind of turned into. Mm-hmm. And it's still evolving. Like, I still don't have it figured out, but it's like we've been fucking consistent. We've been the man in the arena. And I'm looking at almost everything now, and it's just like, man, for those of you guys listening, whether it's a tough experience, whether it's financials, whether it's a friendship, whether it's deep pain, whether it's sickness or illness, like, just keep going. And it sounds so cliche, and like we'll unpack that a little bit, what that means. But like something about that story of Job really resonated with me, where I'm like, you know what? Not really sure, but everything I've tried up until this point hasn't worked. And so it's like, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always be what you've always been. And I was like, you know what? Excuse me, that worked until it didn't work anymore. I have to be open to being coached, which then like unlocked this deconstruction of ego at another level, which is like, whoa, coaches really need coaches. And I paused and I was like, I've always had a coach. Why is it that after my athletic career, I thought I had it figured out? I clearly don't. Kobe needed a coach. Like, Steph needs a coach. Like, all these guys need a coach. Mm-hmm. Having somebody in your corner that like sees the world from a unique set of lenses that can help push or pull you in the right direction, that's beautiful. And I think you've known that, mm-hmm. and you've surrendered to that as well. So it's been cool to observe from my lenses, as I was like the figure it out guy to the guy that didn't have it figured out to now the guy that's just like, I'm on the path and I'm trying to be a sponge.
Well, so the whole thing about the book of Job and this whole story, it boils down to be a matter of faith. What do you have faith in? There's this very interesting podcast, because like I was on the fence with my beliefs, my faith of everything I went through. Very curious, not spiritual, not religious. Seen too many things and just all over the place. But I've started listening to this podcast where the guy is very thought provoking, not preachy. And so he brings up Job as a perfect example. He goes, the whole test of Job is the time we have on earth, this temporal period, is that everything? If you believe that we have, from the time we come out of the womb to the time we get buried in the ground, if that is it, you don't really have much faith in anything, right? You can, like, where does your sense of morality come from if it's only this time? So the kind of more the Christian belief is that there's something far greater beyond our comprehension past this life. And if you have faith in that, that gets you through all the hard times. And so while Job is crying, weeping, being mad at God, but he's like, you still prayed. You still talked to me. You still thought of me during all this hardship.
I was that guy.
Yeah. So you still had faith. And so then it's blossomed into this something far beyond what you thought could be, right? And so that's kind of a very interesting thing of where people put their faith in. If it's just this temporary thing, we have a very finite amount of time on earth, and when we pass away, it's just black, darkness. It's kind of hard to do anything, have any sense of morality, have any sense of good and purpose beyond, these daily interactions. But if you have faith in something much bigger than yourself, and again, it's not for everybody, but it takes a certain amount of naivety, if you would, because like you don't know. It's literally a leap of faith. But that's something that's super important. And I've just, recently gotten back into of, hey, I've always had this sense of purpose and drive of being a part of something bigger than myself or creating something bigger than myself. Like, why would that be? Like,
and why have you stuck with it for so long?
Oh, I should have quit years ago.
Totally.
Should have quit years ago. And so, it's frustrating because you don't get the answers. You don't necessarily get the immediate fulfillment. There's no immediate gratification. But if you believe in something and you believe it's for the betterment of others, I have such more to draw from. It's not a financial transaction. It's not the numbers in my bank account. It's not this, it's not that. It's something bigger. And it's hard to explain where that comes from. It's just kind of, a gut feeling, trusting yourself and going through some very hard times, asking very difficult questions, being mad. This is one thing where, again, this podcast guy touches on. Christianity is the only religion where God comes as a form of human and suffers as we did and has gone through the human experience as we go through.
It's a relatability.
Yeah, it creates that connection piece instead of just being pie in the sky, some very powerful force. This and there. It's like, no, he came to earth.
And what's also cool about that is that for people like you and I that have pursued spirit and connection and Reiki and, all these things that are, related to the planets and related to the energy of the universe and these tethered cords that may or may not exist. There's something to be said about like, man, I did all those things and I still felt like something was missing. I still felt like I was craving more. And I don't know about you, but like in this entrepreneurship journey, like I say this often to my wife around this concept of I no longer relate to my previous tribe, right? Williamson talks about this. But I also haven't evolved yet to relate to the next tribe. And so something about that makes you feel like, damn, I'm trying to get to the top of this mountain, or I'm trying to get to Lake Adiza, John Muir's favorite lake, and I'm just by myself. Not only am I by myself, but nobody gives a fuck. And I pause so people can hear that feeling of loneliness and that silence. Because there was a long time where I thought that silence was pain. It was meaningless. It was nobody gives a fuck. And then it became, whoa, nobody gives a fuck. You know what that means? That means I can try every way under the sun and there's no consequence. I can make podcasts, and if nobody listens to it, I get the reps. I can go shoot in my backyard or front yard, and nobody's going to make fun of me for missing or airballing or having to chase the ball. Like, holy shit. Now it's like, nobody gives a fuck. Let's go. And so it became this excitement, but that came through the maturity of going through the messy mundane of loneliness, which then led to what we're experiencing now, which is like, whoa, we get to go to a comedy club with other guys that are kind of experiencing similar things. Oh, wow, we get to do entrepreneurship dinners. Oh, we get to go hit some golf balls sometimes. Oh, we can do sauna and ice with people, and we can have in-depth conversations of people trying to, like, build. Whoa. This is, like, actually very slow. It's like a turtle fucking stuck in peanut butter, but like we're actually moving in the right direction. We're not where we want to be, but we're not also aren't where we once were.
No, but you've hit up on this often when we're, you know, over doing sauna, cold plungers, or just anything else. It's like play versus work.
Yes.
When no one's watching you shoot the basketball and you can do whatever the fuck you want, let's play.
Mm-hmm.
There's no pressure. And you're getting the reps in, you're getting a feel for the situation. Like, that's where some really powerful things come. Like when you see Steph in pre-warm-ups, he's just flinging the ball up in the air, shooting from half court, not giving a shit.
Not at all.
He's just playing.
Mm-hmm.
But then all that play accumulates to when the job needs to get done,
Mm-hmm.
when actions need to be taken. You have those reps and skill sets in, and then now it's become second nature.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he can probably blindfold that dude. He's going to make 6 out of 10 behind the line.
No, totally.
You just got to feel for it.
Totally. I think you summarized that very well, which is another thing that I love. I feel like oftentimes I mirror echo other people in an efficient manner, and I feel like you do that for me, which is cool. I very much appreciate that. Why is the wellness industry so addicted to buzzwords and they're starving for integrity, right? Like, so much on social media is like, look at me, look at this. I mean, guys flexing abs, doing all the flexing, and it's like, yeah, outwardly they're very external. They're very externally fit, but internally they're starving for emotional, spiritual, and this deep intrinsic love. Like, how do we break down how Trident actually backs up its claims about being authentic? Because these types of conversations are what happen in coffee shops, and specifically yours. Because it's so much bigger than just like, look at me. It's like, no, this has roots. And you've created that culture because it trickles from the top down.
Well, I mean, again, like I've hit on this multiple times, like social media is the highlight reel for everybody. It allows them to show off the version of their best self to the world. And that's what they truly believe people want to see. But at the end of the day, you know, people come into the coffee shop often and they're having a bad day. And they bring their friend in, like, you know, I just went through a breakup, I just lost my job, or something like that. They want a safe place to connect with people. Social media is not that place.
No.
Like, the amount of keyboard warriors, the amount of people that if you try to be vulnerable, they just put you down instantly.
It's weaponized.
Exactly. And because that person who's on the opposite end of that keyboard is probably craving human connection as well. So that, unfortunately, that turns into a negative, because like if I put somebody down, it makes me feel better, which is terrible. But I mean, that's unfortunately where we've gotten to with certain pieces of social media. So in my opinion, you'll never replace human connection, because there is that sense where it's like, all right, I can let my guard down. This is like one of my best friends. I can talk with them about this. It's a safe place. I'm not going to get any judgment. I'm just going to be able to download to them what I'm feeling. They may or may not have advice for me, but I'll at least be heard. And that's the most important thing about me for building out these spaces, is that coffee is just a great way to kind of, you know, feel good, feel productive, but like, you have these conversations, you have business conversations, you have personal conversations, you have this, that, and the other over coffee. And you're able to connect with that person and just feel heard, feel understood. And so that's been extremely interesting for us. And then obviously tying in the organic, the natural ingredients, the functional things, if you can feel better because you're not, you know, 80 grams of sugar in after, you know, another sugary drink from another coffee shop. Okay, then you have that little more resilience because your body's not trying to fight those 80 grams of sugar to try to like digest, process, and feel good. It's like, okay, just clean energy. And so that way you have the ability to be more resilient. Your body's not fighting off all this stuff. So if we can be healthy, like physically and through all what we put in our body, we're going to be more resilient to tackle what life is going to throw at us. And so with cancer on the rise, obesity on the rise, all these things that are taken away from our health and taken away from our quality of life, we wanted to provide something that is going to add to the quality of their life. And so that is with all the ingredients we choose, very, you know, very thoughtful in terms of the ingredient profile, where we source the coffee, the organic piece, all these things matter. And so, because at the end of the day, if you don't feel good, you are not going to show up well for yourself, and you're not going to show up well for others.
Very well said. RFK Jr. just came out with his first diagnostics and analytics with Trump, and Trump gave a speech about it, I think a day or two ago. And he said, you know, the biggest standout for me was that in the 1960s, 1 in 10,000 people were on the autism spectrum. Now it's 1 in 31. And what's interesting is when you look at the onset of all the different things you talked about, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, cancer, you know, different risk factors or different things that we're associated with, before we even get down the rabbit hole of the vaccine conversation, it's linked to fucking sugar.
Well, you have to be curious of seeing that data. Again, you're taking analytics and you're trying to create an emotion out of it. Something's gone wrong.
Yes.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out.
And real quickly, that's what I do in fitness a little bit. Like, I'm not looking at the specificity. I'm looking at the trend, right? Like, I had somebody come in the other day and they're like, hey, you know, I've lost 4 pounds in the last 3 weeks. I've put on a little bit of muscle. I'm feeling better. I'm thinking more clear. I'm sleeping better. I'm like, okay, we're trending in the right direction. You know, I can't say that all the, you know, wearables and, you know, whether it's an in-body or a DEXA scan or a bod pod, like, I don't know if they're exactly correct. I don't know if Whoop is exactly. But when you look at the generalized trend that most of these things are teaching you or giving you some data around, what I just mentioned as the numerical values isn't even close. 1 in 10,000 versus 1 in 31 raises your eyebrows of like, okay, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
Like, whether that's lack of movement, whether that's stress, whether that's social media, whether that's the vaccines, whether that's food, whether that's
Microplastics.
microplastics.
Like you name it. Yeah.
You could go down the rabbit hole. It could be lots of different things. At the end of the day, all of those things can be true. And because we loosely talked about Liver King offline, he's, you know, in the media and the news, but like the 9 ancestral tenets are huge. Like, apparently there's 12, which we can explore here in a second, but it's like ancestral tenets of like natural sunlight, movement, connection, bonding, fireside chats, sleep, quality food, nutrient density, hydration. All those things are freaking huge, man. And what I'm curious about is like, why aren't they talked about?
I mean, there could be multiple reasons why they're not talked about. You know, for most people who go into their doctor, they have 15, maybe 30 minutes with their doctor when they go in for their, you know, primary care physical.
That's on the high end.
Yeah, I'm saying just as a leeway.
Totally.
And so it's tough. Like, they go to med school, they learn about all these things, and, you know, we place a lot of emphasis on the authority. You know, we trust people in positions of authority. And we give away agency when we do that. And so, again, we can go back to what's the good about social media is expressing things like this. You have people who may seem fringe on social media, but if you tear that apart, their messaging is pretty solid. It's just it's honestly very simplistic. Eat good food, move, sleep. You can distill that from most of these health influencers on social media right now. And I can't disagree with any of that. You know, maybe some of the methodology may not work for every individual. You know, some people may not want to go carnivore. Some people may not want to do this, do that. That's fine. But distill the core thesis of what they do. And that's just where that pattern recognition piece comes in. What are each one of these people talking about? And how do I piece that together to something that I can do on a day-to-day basis? So I go behind the computer, and then I'll go for like a 30-minute walk in the sun. I'll make sure I try to stay hydrated, get movement in every day, get my 10 to 12,000 steps in, lift 3 to 4 times a week, like all these little things. But again, it's a summation of all the choices you make. If you start stacking up bad choices routinely over the course of 1 month, 6 months, 5 years, you're not going to be in a better place than you were when you started versus you stack good habits. All right, I'm going to try to get 6 to 8 hours of sleep depending on my needs and what I have to do. I'm going to put better quality of food in, maybe 20% of the time. So 20% of the time I can still go out, enjoy a drink with friends, get a good meal. If you stack good habits up over that course of that 5 years, you're going to be systematically better. But again, people have been give away their agency to the authorities. And so I'm a big fan of RFK Jr. I think he is a pattern breaker. He's asking difficult questions. And when he goes in front of these Senate committees, he's just asking people that he's known for 20 years, like, why is it this way? He doesn't necessarily have an answer. He's not saying this is the direct cause. He's asking questions to be thought-provoking, to elicit a response from these people that they may not know the answer either, but it might get the gears turning in different ways. Like, yeah, maybe we should look at correcting this, or maybe we should change this, or maybe we should make some adjustments here in the legislative piece that we have control over. So right, wrong, or indifferent, I think it's necessary at this point to have somebody like him in office that is going to question. I don't think he has answers. He might have some opinions and beliefs, but man, is he going to question things that it's going to be thought-provoking for 330 million Americans to start asking questions, because all of us have seen it. All of us have seen our parents' quality of life go down. They're not living well. They're on so many pharmaceutical drugs. You know, all these things that they've been told to do because that was the right thing to do. Listen to what your doctor says. It draws it into question because we see it firsthand now. It's like, that's not leading to a better quality of life. Like, what the fuck? So I'm very excited. I think there's a lot of questions that do need to be asked. I don't know if we'll get to the bottom of what the exact thing is, but if you lay out all those things that have been, you can kind of put a pulse on microplastics, artificial dyes, like all the things. Like, if you just start removing those, I think that is just going to trend in that right direction that you had mentioned earlier.
And going back to what you said around pattern recognition, it's just interesting to observe that, like, I'll use Fruit Loops as an example. The ingredient profile of Fruit Loops in Canada versus the ingredient profile of Fruit Loops in America is different.
Yep.
And then you pause for a second, you're like, okay, the government is claiming to have our best interest, but then it's like, okay, a sick patient is a paying patient. Is it actually healthcare or is it sick care? And I think that's like, it's pop culture. Those are trendy terms right now. I think a lot of people are thinking in those terms. Some people are like, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're thinking down those realms. You've curated your algorithm to think that way. And you've got the whole other side. When you pause and you think about it, and you're like, okay, it's kind of odd that we need like Ozempic to lose weight. It's kind of odd that like we're experiencing these problems with procreation. I mean, we could very easily unlock the door towards why is it so difficult for people to have children now? You know, like the population, is it too much, which is the argument on one side, or is it not enough, which is the argument on the other side? It's Bill Gates versus Elon Musk. And it's like, I don't know, I'm looking at Beyond Burgers and all the artificial ingredients associated with the narrative of Bill Gates. And I'm looking at, okay, he's the largest owner of farmland. And then I'm looking that now these cows are being vaccinated. And then I'm like, okay, my circle of people really wants regenerative agriculture and things that are like organ meats and things that are very natural to our human physiology and biology. And then you're looking at the challenges with glyphosate. You're looking at the relationship with Bayer and how they're, you know, associated with all these pesticides, which is now all over our fruits and vegetables. And you go into the store and, like, you know, we have our judgmental eye test of like, oh, what is the greenest or the reddest vegetable? What looks the healthiest? But now it's full of preservatives. And then you understand that at you know, some of these supermarkets nationwide, like the mist that's coming down isn't just mist. It's actually full of pesticides and things that are going to help elongate the shelf life. And somebody like yourself, which you've gone down the rabbit hole of like direct to consumer, you've done the wholesale route where it's like you're a liquid beverage. Shelf life is not easy for you. If you transport something, and it's not refrigerated appropriately with the monk fruit and the MCT oil that's in your cans, it can develop a sour taste if it's not preserved appropriately. But what's the famous line from Mark Sisson from the Primal Blueprint? If it is lasting forever on your shelf, it's probably not the best for you.
Yep.
You should shop the perimeter of your grocery store. If you can't pronounce the fucking ingredients, it's probably not the best for you. And his rule of thumb is if there's like 6 or more ingredients, it's probably not the best also. Your product has very limited ingredients. The shelf life is tough if it's not refrigerated, which is very expensive now when you're trying to go to Sprouts nationwide. So we developed this thing, the functional coffee, elongated shelf life, amazing ingredients, amazing functional mushrooms. You can integrate it with other types of smoothies or beverages. You can also have it solo on its own. What are your thoughts around some of these challenges in the world with shelf preservation, with trying to play the game of like, yeah, we want these things to last and we want to monetize, but monetization is not always in correlation with elongated health and enhanced health. How do you kind of tinker with that, being both a provider and a consumer of these products?
Well, knowing you can find a very happy median with that and not have to sacrifice one completely for the other. I mean, that's where technology has been great. I mean, we have obviously a growing population. We have to feed so many people in the United States. We have so much choice, which, man, it's such a great burden to have, right? You have so much opportunity, so much choice to make.
It's a fucking Netflix problem, though. Too much choice just leads to, hey, we're going to keep trying to find the right movie while we scroll on our phones. We don't really actually watch anything.
But the goal of that is like every kind of evolutionary step, there's always a little bit of chaos. There's always a little bit of turmoil.
True. Well said.
And so with this step, we have a lot of people here to feed in the United States. We have companies that have found a way to do it very cheaply, great shelf life, but poor quality of ingredients. Then you can go to the other side where now you have Tallow Organics in Venice Beach, who is starting small, starting local, but has the ability to scale into other places. And so at scale, there's always that challenge because you're always trying to cut costs. You're always trying to, as a business, you're always trying to be profitable. But you can do it in a way that's sustainable and, it may not make you billions of dollars like the Kellogg's and all these other brands, but you're going to make a good enough money and you're going to enhance people's quality of life because you are providing a service that people are demanding. They want to be healthy. But when they go to their doctor, there's like, oh, take this pill. Take this pill.
Real quickly, man, pill. Is scaling a blessing or a curse?
Both.
Right? Because I agree with you. But it's like, man, like I look at my business and trying to scale means I have to use AI to duplicate me and my presence. Are those people or those hires going to care as much as me? Probably not. But you've experienced that. Like when you hire an employee, like you take that risk and you're trying to educate, motivate, and inspire where, hey, I'm going to trust you and taking care of these things while I go take care of these things. But nobody's going to care as much as you. And it's always case dependent on the incentive. Like if you have multi-millions of dollars, like you can pay people better, they're going to care more.
Yep.
But it's like that conversation is so tough.
I mean, that's the point of the breaking down your mission. Why are you here? The how we do stuff is irrelevant, but why are we doing these things? Because most people have seen family members that are unhealthy, that are suffering from some sort of maybe physical or mental problem that probably stems from the food and stuff they put in their body. So the why is definitely how we can build. Everything centers around like, hey, we're doing this for health and wellness reasons. We're doing this to make people's quality of life better. We're doing this to create connection. We're doing this to enhance the human experience. And it's like, oh, it's just coffee. It's like, yes, but there's also 510 million cups of coffee consumed daily in the United States. That's an opportunity right there. And so,
is it still the highest traded commodity in the world?
I think, behind oil, I think on the C market, yes. I'd have to check the recent data, but out of consumables,
it's up there. It's in the top 5.
Yeah, for sure. And again, because we have we do have a hustle culture here in the United States. We have a more is better mentality, which is why we are where we are, and it comes with problems with that. But at the same time, we have an opportunity to kind of pause and take a look where this is going. And so with quality of life, I think has become an extremely important part of the conversation for the younger generation. If, it's not like, I don't think people like our age and younger are not willing to be on 10 pharmaceutical drugs when they're 50. I just don't feel that that's where they're going. So we've seen an implosion in gyms. We've seen an implosion in health and wellness retreats, events, functional products like functional ingredients on foods now. And so there's definitely a shift.
Biohacking culture's fucking taken off.
Is massive.
It's huge.
And so there are definitely people in the space that deserve a lot of appreciation that have taken to the microphone, taken to social media, and not be preachy about it. Just educate. And that takes time. But again, like we alluded to earlier, after enough pain, people will make changes.
Yep.
And so I think it's necessary. I think it's a subtle and slower approach. But in the next 5-10 years, health and wellness is the conversation.
Yeah.
Sickness, people are going to avoid sickness like the plague. because they know it's like they've seen it in their family. They saw it with their parents. It's like, that's not what I want to strive for.
Totally. RFK summarized it in a very small amount of words. He goes, when you have wellness, you have thousands of goals. When you don't have wellness or you don't have health, you have one goal.
Be healthy.
You said it. And so it's just, we can pursue all these things. And I have so many friends, so many clients who are like, oh, I got to make money. I got to do this. I have this, this. Everything is a priority above health until you get sick, until something happens. And so my curiosity with you, Eric, is where does both Trident and ALLSMITH fall into the conversation of preventative versus reactive medicine? Because my vision is that ALLSMITH is preventative medicine, that we are trying to create the education and the consistency of habits with movement, with mindset, with optimal morning and evening routines, with human connection, which I think synergizes really well with coffee, with understanding not just the profile of ingredients in your coffees, but also the human connection component, which sometimes is made through fitness, sometimes is kind of like two ships passing in the night. But it's like those things seemingly are these huge returns on investment with regards to long-term health, but it falls into the realm of delayed gratification.
Well, I think you have the wrong verbiage. You are not medicine. You're a supplement. You take medicine when you're sick, right? Try to get better. You take a supplement to enhance something else. So you are like very much a lifestyle thought process that's holistic. So again, we're not a medicine company. Technically right now we're a supplement company with our functional coffee. We are supplementing to add to the quality of your life. If you take medicine, you're sick. So I think that's a different
I love
frame.
that shift in framework.
Yeah,
that's
it's a different thought process, because again, my parents take medicine for high blood pressure, for this, for that. You know, they're not taking supplements. They're kind of past that. You know, at a certain point, like, so we're at this intersection of how do we make a difference? Is that we improve quality of life by being a supplement, and that supplement can be sauna, ice, breathwork, meditation, physical movement, journaling. Those are all supplements to the outcome you're wanting to achieve. You're not taking medicine to cure anything or to downplay a symptom. All those things that you do when you supplement get rid of the symptom, you know, or mitigate it so much where it's not a problem anymore.
Yeah, I love the way you said that, man. That's so true. And it's one of my favorite things about our conversation is just unlocking shifts in language, the phrasing abracadabra, with my word I create. And that's Aramaic for people that are listening. That is the very first language.
That was from Aladdin.
Yeah. Abracadabra, create magic. But yeah, it's Aramaic. It's the verbiage of Jesus way back in the day. So it's just interesting to see how historical reference keeps coming forward. Before we jump into the heaviness of like recency bias, local news, some of the conspiracies that we've danced on, what do you believe is the highest form of currency? Time or attention?
I think right now, unfortunately, attention for the masses, the people who kind of have it figured out, I think time. You're playing in different games at that point. Because the ones who are doing really well have been able to capture everybody's attention, and the most valuable thing for them is their time. So it's almost kind of apples and oranges, but definitely right now with social media, attention is the currency to get your message out there, to have power, control, whatever you want to say, but have influence is the big thing, is influence. So yeah, I find it extremely interesting. To grow, to build a brand, you need to capture attention, but then while you're doing that, you're trying to influence people to do something different, potentially, make a different purchase habit or change a lifestyle piece, whatever the case may be. And so you can get that by capturing their attention, but you have to have a strong enough message and value derivative to get them to actually have influence to change their habit or change their current belief system, ideology, purchasing power, whatever the case may be.
Damn, you're smart.
Not really.
You ready to get in trouble with me?
I will always preface it as that I'm a very curious person and I love asking questions. I'll leave it at that.
Free is the way to be. Life beats us up a bit and causes some bumps and bruises, but that doesn't mean we have to stay on the sidelines. This is why we've partnered with Kinneon Labs. Get back to doing what you love with this incredible portable device designed to get you back in the game. Kinneon is on a mission to move people from pain to possible with their top-rated red light therapy and laser solution, which tackles inflammation along with muscle and joint pain quickly and effectively. What I love is that it's portable and rechargeable, making it easy to actually incorporate into my everyday life consistently. It's small and lightweight, so you can throw it in your gym bag or work bag or even an overnighter. Kinneon's lasers and LED combo make this cutting-edge device extremely versatile for use with general aches and pains, as well as chronic back pain, arthritis, post-surgery recovery, endometriosis, and more. This has been an amazing tool keeping my elbows and knees pain-free for pressing, pulling, and squatting in the gym. Great tools like the Move Plus give me the freedom and flexibility to continue living life on my terms without limitations. There are a lot of reasons why over 15,000 people are using this device and rating it 4.7 stars and above. Head on over to kinneon.io and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to begin your pain-free journey.
The pandemic, man. We're in 2025 now. This floated to the surface back in, probably right before 2020. I'm going to say 2020 though, just because that's the date that seems to be referenced for most people. At the time, it was a narrative that was really pushed heavily. If you don't get the vaccine, you're an anti-vaxxer, you're selfish, you don't care about the population around you. I very much, I don't want to speak for you or anybody else, but I very much felt like this didn't pass my smell test. I lost friends. I had challenges with family. I don't have any judgment. All I know is, similar to you, I was very curious. It really hurt my heart to lose people just because I simply chose to wait and press pause. And now, being labeled as a nonconformist, conspiracy theorist, anti-vaxxer, those things are seemingly floating to the surface and becoming true. Oh, this did really come from a lab in Wuhan. The government had knowledge of some of the issues associated with this vaccine, and, this constant tickle of the frenzy associated with myocarditis with young kids has become fact. It's not an opinion anymore. We're probably never going to get an apology from that side of the street, which is okay. I don't need the apology. But the acknowledgement that this is fucking dangerous for the future of humanity, of hey, this thing's come to the surface. We're gaining more ideas. We're gaining more knowledge. We're gaining more education around this. Maybe we should test this a little more. Maybe we shouldn't just force these things with, excuse me if I'm wrong, but a governmental opinion in mind. And there's a part of me that has so much empathy and compassion, because I think there was a lot of government manipulation.
There's so much fear in the media and things like that. So I agree. It's extremely hard. No apologies necessarily necessary. People were told one thing, they went with it, they believed it because they were scared. I mean, it's so hard to judge people when they're scared. I mean, you can go back throughout history. Bad things have happened when masses are scared. Mm-hmm. But what would be great, which I still don't think we're ever going to get, would be accountability.
Yes.
Some acknowledgement of even if it's, hey, we did the best we could with the information we had.
Yeah.
We may not have made the right choice, but we did it in the matter of fact to try to keep people safe as possible. That would be a game changer for public opinion and government agencies, this and the other. We're never going to have all the information. We're going to have we have to make the best decisions with the information that we have. And sometimes it doesn't lead to the best outcome. but accountability of that, you know, some sort of recognition of that would be game changer, because it would put trust back in.
So here's my next question. I can't help but navigate my natural human physiology, which is to clench my fists and grit my teeth a little bit, because the honesty from someone like Peter McCullough, who's looked into the data, you've seen the things with Mel Gibson and other people on Rogan talking about ivermectin, and I apologize if I've mispronounced this, but the fenbenzenol, things that can potentially help with cancer. We're seeing the things with carbon-60 serum and deuterium-depleted water. We're seeing the things around fasting and a ketogenic diet. But all these things are kind of pushed to the side because there's no research associated with them. And what really comes to mind, Eric, is that what is research now? Is it funded by Big Pharma? Is it things that just have this political agenda to serve as propaganda to monetize the big companies? Because before you jump in, like, I just want to really highlight, like, if you want the truth, you follow the fucking money. Why was Fauci the highest paid governmental employee? And why is he all of a sudden silent as all of this stuff starts to float to the surface?
I mean, I don't have a great answer for that. I think I always try to be optimistic. Where I'm hopeful is that people had to experience that. And then as time goes on, more information becomes available, more people get to speak of the actual factual things that occurred during that 5 years of our life. I mean, things shut down. We couldn't see our loved ones. You couldn't go to the hospital. Like my good friend, his dad caught COVID, was in the hospital. Glenn had COVID, didn't get the vaccine yet, and wasn't able to go allowed to see his father, and his father passed away in the hospital.
It's brutal.
So people are hurt because of some of these things, and then now they're at least way more suspectful of malintent, I believe. There's going to be a lot more questions to be had the next go around. And so as unfortunate as that whole thing is, I'm optimistic that you have these strong voices in media now that are more independent, that are bringing on these experts. And as the truth, as this expression of art comes out of all the stuff that these guys have put decades of research into, contradicts, you know, the government, it's creating more of a curiosity in people, which I think is absolutely necessary. But you have to have dialogue. You can't just like, oh, you're stupid, I'm not going to listen to anything you say. Go in with an open mind. Like, people saw what COVID did.
That's my big thing right there, is like, I think you and I both have prefaced numerous times of like, hey, I'm no expert, I'm curious, right? Like, I'm not sitting here on a high horse like I know. I am sitting here on a high horse saying, I wanted to wait.
Yep.
I wanted to gain more information. I wanted to patiently make appropriate decisions as I felt comfortable. I didn't want to be fear-mongered and told that I was a selfish prick that didn't care about the world, even though I tried to be a man of service. What I didn't appreciate was being like pushed and bullied into a corner and told that I was an anti-vaxxer and I was a bad human and I didn't care about people. It's actually like, hold on. I am just seeking to gain more information, because something about the peer pressure and the fast timeliness of this is making my insides feel very uncomfortable. And, you know, I don't know if that's intuition. I don't know exactly what to call that. All I know is, like, I thought that was what freedom of choice was. I thought that that's what information gathering was. I thought that that's what this country was all about, which is like, hey, some people are going to learn the lesson fast. Some people are going to learn the lesson slow. I'm a slow learner. Cool. But at the end of the day, like, when I'm labeled all these things and kind of bullied, and then all of a sudden it comes full circle and I'm walking through the grocery store and I'm trying to make my best food choices with a limited budget. I'm trying to take care of myself. I'm trying to treat people appropriately. At the time, I was leading the Viore Active Club and doing all kinds of like wellness and mindset to get people to move without any equipment, which I thought was like, you know, a sign of just like actively participating in the realm of being a good Samaritan. Free resource press the Instagram live, you get free workouts in connection with somebody that's gone to school for these things, that loves you, appreciates you, and wants to guide you towards a better life. I asked for very little in return other than, hey, I worked for a company. I just wanted an hourly rate. And it's like, to get demonized in the midst of trying to do good was just wild to me. And at that time, you had, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement. You had the challenges with George Floyd. You know, since then, we've had the LA fires. We've had all these challenges with, you know, now everybody's questioning almost everything because the Epstein's files still haven't been really released. We're seeing the Diddy trial go on. We're seeing the JFK files haven't really floated to the surface. Then people time and time again watch 9/11. It's like, how did all these different buildings fall when it looks like a controlled demolition? Mm-hmm. This building over here wasn't even hit by a plane, but still fell. And now we're seeing, you know, backtracked and logged things from The Simpsons and all these different things that, you know, okay, seemingly they seem like conspiracies, but it's like, if you have enough data over the course of time, you're going to be like, okay, like something feels a little bit off. Mm-hmm. And then we're seeing things like, if you go travel to the Grand Canyon, there's a certain space there like you can't go to. Black helicopters come say, hey, you can't go there. Then you've got Area 51 and the things with, you know, challenges with aliens. And then you've got these things that are coming up with cloud seeding. Oh, cloud seeding doesn't exist. Okay, then why the fuck is it a law in Florida that cloud seeding can no longer take place? Why does cloud seeding openly happen in Dubai? Like, all these things seemingly are happening over and over again, which is adding to my argument of like, something isn't passing my smell test. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying I'm fucking curious. Mm-hmm. And what I'm here to ask you today is Florida right? Like, Florida's passing a bunch of these laws. And do you think that COVID was a bioweapon all along?
I mean, one of those things where it's going to be tough because you'll never know really the full truth. You're going to see patterns, collect data, and, you know, make decisions with what feels right. And so, again, I'm a very curious person. And, you know, because I personally feel I've been lied to by the government, going over to overseas for fighting the good fight and doing what we were supposed to do. And then, oh, there's no weapons of mass destruction. There's no this, there's no that. So I think it makes me naturally more pausing on taking words at face value from certain agencies, entities, and people. So it's really fun for me. But the downside is, like, I have obviously gone way down the rabbit holes and spent way too much time over something that I cannot control. And it is fun. But yeah, I don't think we'll ever fully know. I think there's enough evidence to point that, yeah, there was gain of function research going on at Wuhan. There was definitely people knowing certain things that after the lab leak, things came out. And obviously, was it just released? Did it break out? Like, who really knows? Like, there's probably only a handful of people that truly know their intentions. Because then it's also hard to, like, point at intentions. Why would you do this thing? Like, that person meant this. Like, they may not have. And so it gets into this game, which is, again, very fun, but very time consuming. But all those kind of things that you had mentioned, I'm extremely curious about because, yeah, it's like it changes the course of human history if they were done with malicious intent. Mm-hmm. It makes you question governmental control over its subjects, over its people.
We talked about it briefly offline. The gentleman that killed Osama bin Laden was on a podcast recently, and he said, wow, I walked into his quarters at 2 a.m. I had to kill children and do certain things, and I eventually killed Osama bin Laden because that was the mission. Yep. That was what I was trained to do. That's what I was told from the governmental employees that were in control of giving us, you know, the insight, the intel, and the objective of the mission. He's like, now I paused looking back, and I'm like, whoa. Was that manipulated because of money, over oil control, over... I mean, we've seen different narratives now associated with the bombing of Iran and all these things. They're like, okay, is it actually because of nuclear weapons? Or is it because there's oil being sent from Iran to China that doesn't fall under the American dollar, that's under a different quota that now is perking the eyebrows, whereas all this shit over money? I don't know. But it's like now you're using the actual lives of our human beings that are the highest trained individuals that go through hell and back to go through buds and all the things. These are things that we know. there's a bunch of things that fall under the realm of what we don't know. People that risk everything to serve their country. And it's like you pause and you're like, whoa. You look at the political agenda of some of these presidents. And you're like, whoa. This is either great or it's royally fucked.
I think the best thing you can do is if, people are upset, really take the time to look into your representatives that you're putting into the House and into the Senate. That has a huge impact. Because again, we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. We put our senators and our representatives into places that pass legislation. Yes, we can call their office and tell them we're upset. But at the end of the day, if they're getting bought by lobbyists, it doesn't really matter what we say. So truly paying attention to who we put into the office is gonna matter substantially. And looking at, people have been in for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. They probably don't have the best pulse on the people, and they've probably made a lot of money being in that position of power for so long. So yeah, there are certain things by the human nature, human condition. Greed is always one of the biggest things that is the best temptation that the devil, however you want to say it, takes over us quickly. And so I think it's very important for people to, I hate to say, give a shit a little bit more about some of these things, because they do impact your life in certain regard. Like you always say, oh, it doesn't bother me, it doesn't impact me. You can go back to the COVID piece. The vaccine was not a choice for the most part. You couldn't go out to eat. You couldn't fly on a plane. You couldn't work. There's certain things that you could not do. And some of my friends in the military got kicked out of it because they did not want to get it. So you lost your livelihood. But they'd say, oh, no, it's not mandatory. But what upsets me and I think a lot of people now is that the emergency use authorization was not necessary. There were multiple things that were off-label but still effective for treatment of COVID. You had the whole Joe Rogan protocol. I mean, if you gave that to people, shit, we may not have had an issue.
The monoclonal antibodies were a gem.
Yeah.
But they were only on market for like a month.
Because they took it off, because if they have those available, they can't get the emergency use authorization.
And ivermectin was perceived as a horse pill. What the fuck?
I mean, Joe Rogan goes through his whole thing, his whole experience about that is like, so if, again, here's the downside. If you're curious and you go against the grain, you're probably going to ruffle some feathers. Like you had just mentioned your entire thing. Like you did not like being demonized for wanting to do good. Like you had good intentions. Unfortunately, sometimes you're going to get shit on for it, but it's being okay with it. And as hard and difficult as it is, if like you want to pause, take thought, you're courteous to other people, like, hey, like I'll wear a mask if you want me to, I'll stay away if you want me to, I'll do whatever. Like I'm just not comfortable. Unfortunately, there's, when emotions get up high, fear is probably the best way to control people. And I think our government did a phenomenal job with that. And you can go to 9/11, you can go to COVID, you can go to all these things. Fear is a phenomenal control mechanism. So the only really cure to that is have curious, free thinkers to be like, why would I be scared of this? Or why do I need to be scared of this? Is there something else that I can do? Is there something that is available to us that I can get over the counter or through a prescription? Can I get an IV full of jam-packed of good stuff? But I mean, the sad part about COVID is that if you were a healthy individual, like you had a good BMI, you worked out regularly, you ate good food, you were not at risk of having any severe consequences from COVID. It was the people who were not taking care of themselves, the people that were 30, 40 pounds overweight, the ones that were on 5 or 6 medications that had comorbidities. Like that's the problem. So if you truly respect yourself, and you have to take care of your body, like it's the one thing that we kind of have that can like really influence how we show up on a day-to-day basis.
Totally. I also, I forgot the name of the comedian. I'll have to put it in the show notes, but he talks about on Netflix. He has a Netflix special. He's the redhead guy. I forgot his name.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name right now.
But he talks about the phrasing comorbidities. So what the fuck is that? That we never heard that term until COVID, and all of a sudden it means you're actually overweight. But also at that time, it was like no conversation around optimal health, lifestyle, movement. I mean, I had friends that went and trained at the park, and they would like video their workouts to kind of show. It's like, oh, you're selfish. You don't care about anybody else. You're spreading the issue. And then you look later at like all the, micro issues associated with wearing a mask. and you know how unsanitary that is and how difficult that is. You like see people modern day that are like driving a fucking car wearing a mask by themselves. And it's like, guys, you got to stop. Like, you're 70 pounds overweight. The mask isn't going to save you. Going to move and taking care of yourself and stopping the sugar and all the bad things that you're putting into your system and actually being consistent with something is going to lead to optimal health biomarkers. But what's so crazy is just the idea of like, hey, I'm actually 70 pounds overweight, but if I take the shot and I wear a mask and I follow these rules, I'm good. And I just call bullshit, man. Like, I got a cease and desist for front squatting by myself. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is weird. I'm bettering myself. There's nobody in this facility right now. Nobody's around me. I'm following and abiding by the 6-foot rule. I'm bettering myself by trying to exercise and do something good so I can be a man of service outside in a few hours and contribute to the health and well-being of not only this community but to the world. And I'm getting a cease and desist because I don't know why. Like, it really doesn't make sense. And what I'm curious to kind of navigate our conversation next, Eric, is why do conspiracy theories often become tomorrow's headlines? Right? Like, to elaborate on that a little deeper is like, is it recency bias or is it a delayed drip of uncomfortable truths?
Probably a delayed drip of uncomfortable truth, because you had, for the UAP piece, you had the New York Times article in like 2017. And you're like, oh, okay, like, we don't know what these things are, like navigating in and out of airspace. And it's tough because, like, we don't want to feel we're being lied to or manipulated, right? We want to go into a relationship with anything that there's good intentions being done by the other party, that there is truthfulness, there is a mutual respect for ourselves. And so it's like, again, that's how you want to enter any sort of relationship, like mutual respect, truth telling, this, that, and the other. Then when it doesn't, then things go south. Then, you know, then it gets, you know, you get upset at the other person, get upset at the other entity. And so I think with whatever the case may be for any of these conspiracy theories, it's just time. Why all the full truth isn't out yet? It could be complete for control, for power, for all these things, and that might turn out to be true. And it is so frustrating. But there are people out there who are generally curious, that are like deep diving into these things. But I don't think you're going to get the masses to believe them. There's a comfortability of giving away agency for protection, for security, for these things. Like, some people probably don't care that there's UAPs around. It's like, well, I pay my taxes, I got roads, I got a grocery store, my family's good. There's not necessarily a full need for some of these people to give a shit.
Yeah, they live in a box, though.
Yeah, but hey, sometimes it's, you put an ostrich head in the ground, it's fine.
Yeah. I think you need people to live in a box a little bit. And then you have some people that are the edge seekers that they're taking a hammer and a chisel to the edge of that box. What I want to unbox a little bit with you, though, is the education system a training ground or is it a fucking prison?
I mean, I haven't been in formal education for a while, but the more and more you kind of see it, yeah, it's definitely indoctrination. Because the goal of them, it sounds like it's pretty much a standardized test or the main metric of success. That's how they get government funding. That's how they get state funding. And so instead of, especially with apparently like ADHD is running rampant right now in young kids, and it may not be a bad thing, but these kids need a positive outlet. If they sit them down for 45 minutes at a time to learn about a subject they give no shits about, you're actually doing them a disservice. I think it's like, we kind of talked about this a little bit, like finding your own genius. And I've seen a lot of people go shift more towards homeschooling, to charter schools, to other education institutions that kind of promote that individuality while still conforming to make sure they can pass tests, they're smart, they have the basics down. But yeah, I definitely think the education system is broken, and we're seeing that with this current administration kind of dismantling the Department of Education as the first kind of pillar stone of making change. Yeah. Again, I know a lot of people won't agree with me here, but I think this current administration is a change agent. I don't think many of these secretaries, departments are going to last 18 plus months. It is to kind of really change things that need to be adjusted and changed to move it to something that's more sustainable. My personal opinion, I don't think the way we were going as a government was sustainable for another decade.
Move fast and break shit. It's the line from LSKD. You got to break shit in the beginning.
Yeah.
Be slightly destructive in order to create some transparency.
But it's been a bureaucracy for the last, several decades of more and more government institution power, more federal employees being added to the whole thing, and it just gets bloated.
Yeah.
So I've loved Elon coming in and really going after it from a very aggressive entrepreneurial mindset of trying to identify fraud, waste, and abuse, which if anyone who has worked in the government know it does exist.
I mean, it was also the first identification of NGOs.
Yeah.
Non-government organizations. And for people that don't know about that, it's like, okay, now we're very, very aware of where some of this government funding is going. And it's like, now we look back at some of these protests going on in LA associated with ICE and the removal of illegal immigrants. Are like, holy shit. Gavin Newsom and some of the Democratic Party helped invest in some of these things. Previously, we would have had zero awareness of that.
Yep.
But now, like you said, paying attention to pattern recognition, where is this funding going, following and just tracing the money,
Yep.
and then realizing that it's going into the pockets that, are being slightly disruptive. And, at the very least, removing all opinion, it's simple transparency. Money is being vested into these things, which is then shifting behavior. If you want to change behavior, create incentive. That's like behavior 101.
Yep.
And so I think it's just important to see those things. What are your thoughts on some of the LA fires? Do you think it was a land grab? Do you think, we saw all these arsonists going on. I'm directly associated with that, with having family property up there and things going on. And my wife and I drove through Malibu, and some of these places where I had childhood memories and connections with friends and family are now completely destructed. There's cars that are just completely charcoaled up. And a part of me wants to say, okay, it's nature doing its thing. You go into the wilderness and there's natural fires all the time. But it's hard for me to believe, based on reservoirs being empty, all these fire hydrants being empty, and then being a man that really observes natural human behavior, seeing Gavin Newsom be like, oh yeah, it's such a great opportunity. We've got people coming in that want to purchase this, and this, not taking into consideration the livelihood. That to own a home in Malibu, you spend your whole life trying to afford that. Mm-hmm. And your family, your friends, your connections, and all of a sudden you just pick up and start all over. There's not really a ton of government funding to aid, not to mention the challenges with homeowners insurance and fire insurance. What are your thoughts on some of that and just this onset of smart cities that's kind of floating to the surface a little bit?
Again, as devastating as it was, my dad was a firefighter for 27 years. So, seeing that and unwind and chatting with him about it, the unpreparedness of it was an issue, but when you have 100-mile-an-hour winds, there's not much you can do anyway. So It was literally whatever happened to start it, the Mother Nature definitely took over and devastated the path there. And there's little you can do in that scenario when you have that high of winds.
Just to create a fair question, because I have friends that live in Malibu. Was it 100-mile-an-hour winds, or was that what was documented and reported? That's
the thing. I think that could have been just reporting that I heard of it being 100-mile-an-hour winds. But to see how fast it spread and how devastating it was, the intent behind what they want to do post, it would be very enlightening to me if they said, hey, we are going to add emergency people to the building department. We are going to expedite permits for families to rebuild and make it so you have your home back to as close to original as possible, as quickly as possible. Instead, there are delays for removal of any sort of toxic hazmat that occurred. There's a slowness to it that is frustrating, that makes you beg the question that, okay, maybe they might just wait people out to, they sell the property to a developer and they just walk away.
It seems purposeful from my just honest opinion. I look at the 9/11 conspiracy and it's the owner of the towers who had breakfast there
Yep.
every day. Conveniently decided to not have breakfast there the day of the 9/11 collapse. And then you look at this interesting issue with the LA fires. It's like, ironically, all these homeowners insurance companies decided to pull out less than a month before this issue. The timing of it just, come on, guys. Like, if you're going to get this past a critical thinker, fucking do it better. Like, come on, Gavin. Like, you're going to create your own podcast now to try to create transparency and buy-in. And then I have Richard Bailey on, who's the mayor of Coronado. That's like, hey, man, I'm over politics. I want policies over politics. And you're having all these people on like Charlie Kirk who completely demolishes all of your ideologies, and you can't do anything except dance around with your political jargon. Like, at the end of the day, just be fucking honest. You wanted to make that into a smart city, and you wanted to create some sort of political jargon so that you can continue to get funding. And if that's not true, I'll just follow the money, and I'll see all the money going towards your wife and the NGOs to build out all these other things. It's like, it seemingly to me is like, you can't hide it anymore.
And that is the absolute part of the blessing of social media, is that, 5-10 years ago, there was not a strong enough voice. There was not a strong enough questioning of reality. It's like what you saw, that's what you accepted. And so I love the conversation that, regardless of what side of the fence you're on, is that if you go into a long form conversation and you kind of remove emotions and you just talk about the policy, the facts and things like that, it's very hard for most of these liberal arguments to hold weight.
Yes.
It's like, Charlie Kirk, I think, does a good enough job to address some of those things when he did the interview with Gavin Newsom, but he didn't really press him that hard.
No.
And so when you do some of these conversations, if you don't have a really good understanding of why you believe in what you believe in, it is tough to get through 3 hours of a conversation.
Yes.
If you don't have true conviction in what you believe in. And, that's the thing with some of these more conservative thought processes, is that we can have disagreements and we can have a conversation. But at the end of the day, we walk out of here, we're both like, okay, that was a good call. Like, I'm glad we had that conversation. I learned more. You learned more. It's not taking it personally as an attack. And so, like, that's where I've really kind of gravitated towards, is just there's so much information out there. And after you listen to several hours of maybe one talking point or the other, you're like, this makes way more sense to me. Mm-hmm. So when you have a comparison of Richard Bailey versus Gavin Newsom, like, Richard Bailey makes absolute sense to me. He's talking very practically. He's talking about policies that actually have implications that to make the city safer, more accessible. And, one thing he brought up was the MTS. It's heavily subsidized for public transportation. He's like, for every person that took the bus, you could give them a Tesla Model 3 for the same price.
Yes.
Like, when you present information like that, that's like mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't dance around things to try to like comfort other people. It's like, because at the end of the day, transparency is one thing that I think most people do crave, while it's uncomfortable for some. If you could do a budget of the beautiful city we live in, San Diego, and do an audit and have full transparency, and you disseminated that, and you had hours of podcast to discuss the ins and outs of all these things and where the money's going, and it would be, I think, very alleviating for a lot of people to understand how bloated governments are and how wasteful they are of your money, your taxpayer money. This is money that you cannot pass on to your kids. This is money you can't pass on to have a more quality of enjoyable life. All these things that they take away from you, because that governments don't raise money. Like, they're not driving commerce. They're collecting money from their citizens and then distributing it as they see fit, even though you vote for the mayor, or even though you vote for city council members. So that to me is the most frustrating thing. And the more these conversations come, the more transparent our current administration is at the federal level to expose these things. It will take time, but man, is there a shift.
Totally.
Oh, there's a massive shift right now. And
100%.
It's interesting to see.
I got asked, I don't know, about 6 weeks ago, like, who is Bryce after his professional athletics career? And I said, a lifelong learner and a professional mistake maker. And what that is openness. It's curious. It's exploring, like you said, what makes sense. if something doesn't make sense, I think it's totally healthy to be like, hey, I don't know if I totally align with that because it's not, it's not computing with my internal operating system. So like upgrade your argument, and then I might be able to lean a little bit closer. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying I simply don't understand.
Well, what doesn't help there, as you alluded to the COVID thing, calling people names is not a way to get people like free thinkers.
And also using the phrasing, trust the science.
Yeah.
Okay, who's funding the fucking science? Like that doesn't do it for me. It's like, hey, I'm totally open. I am not claiming to be this, hierarchy, know-all, be-all. I'm claiming to be this person that is a recipient of information and an observer of the world. And it's like, if you give me some really cool things, I'm like, you know what? That's dope.
Well, rarely is science settled. How much have we learned, from 100 years of doing all these experiments and every couple of years or you learn more and more. Totally. So to say like it's settled is, a very bold statement, which I don't think people necessarily are buying into anymore.
Totally. As we wrap things up, Eric, this was super fun, by the way.
Yep.
I can't wait to do it again. What do you think? Are we living in a simulation or are we living in a spiritual battleground? Like, do you think this is the Matrix theory kind of meeting this modern awakening? Or what do you think's kind of going on in modern day society? Because this is the most disruptive that I've seen, in my 35 years.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Because you perceive the world through really your five senses, and that's kind of where your sight, your touch, your taste, like the smell, and it's very tactile to a sense, right? But for those who have, maybe experienced something where they are, get out of their out of body experience in some regard. I mean, that could be a near-death experience. That could be any sort of psychedelic. There seems to be when there is some sort of chemical release or chemical thing, you go to a different place, like different reality. And so for me, that's extremely interesting because like through my journey and some of my healing process, I've been able to go through a Heroic Hearts Project, which is a fantastic nonprofit that takes veterans down for healing and introducing psychedelic medicine to them as well. And so we've been able to do ayahuasca through that amazing nonprofit. And you are literally in a different reality during that time. It seems scary. I know like people who are control freaks, but it's the most peaceful, the most loved I've ever felt is during those ceremonies.
Wow.
It's like some parts are scary, something, but you just have to navigate and go through it. But like you're literally in a different reality. Wow. Like you're in your body, but you're not. And so to say, is this or the other? Like, I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. But the more you experience stuff and the more, for me, it's aligning more towards love and optimism instead of fear and, fear and pain. That's when I see myself aligning better. So the more I go to that, the more I feels right. The more I feel like I'm closer to my calling, closer to my purpose is when I navigate towards that. And then when I'm obviously, scared, difficult dealing with finances, handling the business stress, when I'm in that space, like I feel the least close to who I'm supposed to be. And so like finding ways to break out of that. But the psychedelic side has been a phenomenal opportunity for me to explore very new territory. And
you're not the first to say that. This is consistent. I mean, the body keeps the score. Love seems to be this overarching concept that comes back into the conversation time and time again, even in the realm of made up concept like monetization, business growth and development, the stock market, all these things that create a social hierarchy or numerical data. As we look at, what's going on with the people that we talked about, Gates, Soros, Musk, and this power pull or push behind the scenes, do you think this EV push is about sustainability, or do you think it's about surveillance and control and like this data capturing associated with like NASA?
Well, I would say it's frustrating living here in San Diego or in California in general. Like I have an EV, I have a Tesla, and I love it. But then you can go to California is now increasing the gas tax here soon, come July 1st. And what's just so interesting about that is that I've seen Tesla putting more charging stations than the state of California putting in their own. Because if they're charging Californians all this money for gas, that is for sustainable infrastructure to get away from gas-powered engines by 2035, like what their agenda is, they're not investing any of that shit into the next generation of what they want to go to.
Wait, so you're saying if you follow the money, it doesn't actually align with the narrative?
That's what I'm saying. If you can audit and get transparency, but you'll, unfortunately, it won't. It'll have some tough calls. People have to actually vote in and do the right thing. But that to me was just like an eye opener, is that, hey, all right, the gas tax is increasing. It doesn't affect me because I'm not paying the gas tax. I have an EV. But at the same time, where I see Tesla charging stations pop up all the time, and I don't see any state-funded, I might be wrong, but I don't see any state-funded charging stations improving along major corridors of commerce and transit. And that's obviously the goal, is to not have gas-powered vehicles. So you're going to need charging stations. You're going to need energy. You're going to need an infrastructure. And I don't see anything. I don't see any nuclear power plants being built, which some people are scared of. But for the most part, you can do small modular. The new technology hasn't been advanced in 50 years. We have better technology now than we would. Like Chernobyl is not necessarily a thing that's of concern from modern day nuclear energy. You're going to need that for EVs. Like if we have blackouts from, 3-4 years ago with the current infrastructure we had for electric vehicles, imagine in a couple of years if we don't invest in power infrastructure.
Totally.
AI needs power infrastructure, like all these things. So it's like, I think it's like people would love consistency. Whatever you say, do your best to have the actions that support that statement.
Yeah, do words and actions alone.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. So I think that has been the most frustrating thing, especially for American politics, which, love or hate, Trump is doing it. Like he says he's going to do something and he does it.
Yeah.
And it pisses people off. I get it. I understand there's a lot of emotions around that. But from a leadership standpoint, that's admirable. You may not agree with his policy on it, but man, that's at least nice knowing that he's not being political in nature. He says, like, this is what's necessary, in my opinion, to make the country better. Let's go do it. And he does it.
Totally. We went to an awesome comedy adventure the other night at the La Jolla Comedy Club with some of our close entrepreneurial friends. And, the topic of AI came up. And the comedian raises his voice in this unique, funny gesture. And he's like, how many of you women out there would fuck a robot? And it was like funny at the time. And some girl was like, hell no. And the other girl's like, hell yeah. And he goes on this rabbit hole of like, man, you look at like some of these vibrator dicks and they're like bigger, badder, and better than anything that we can do as guys. And then he's like, you look at some of these pocket pussies and it's just like me. And it's so sad. And like, then he brings up the argument again. So how many of you would fuck an AI robot? And what I'm curious about there, like, yes, that's funny. Yes, it could be the future. I mean, we're seeing OnlyFans take off. We're seeing AI robots take off. We're seeing things on dating websites where everybody's using AI pictures and all these things to try to create this ideology of like, I'm better than I am. I mean, the famous line back in the day, you look better on Facebook than you do in person, whatever. Do you think AI is going to save the world? Do you think it's really going to destroy it?
Again, it's a crazy double-edged sword. I think it has tremendous power for good. I think it's just who is directing it and what it's learning from to create the large language learning model that it is then projecting back.
That's it right there. It takes a critical thinker and an engineer like mind to prompt it appropriately, the input, then like you said, where we started the conversation, the black box, and then the output. It can't just be any Joe Schmo being like, hey, give me a good thing for this.
Yep.
And I think that's what, like, it's distorted into the mind. Like, oh, you just used AI. It's like, you're damn right I used a tool.
But the again thing, if you go back to the start end of it, of how it's prompted and this and the other, it's not coming out of nowhere. There is a model that it is pulling data from. So the biases of the input, like any sort of science experiment, if someone has a bias towards wanting a certain outcome, that's going to get manipulated during the black box piece. So the output could be manipulated. So I definitely think it's an amazing tool. I love it. I use it every day, but it does leave some concern for like, are there biases going in? Is it a truth machine? Like at the end of the day, is its goal truth? Absolute objective truth. Or there are some biases that get filtered in that, it's not absolute truth. It's, the whole thing, my truth is this.
Yeah.
My truth is that. It's like, no, I'd say the truth is the truth. You have your opinion. You have your lens, your perception of how you see the world. You have your perspective. Those are all valid. but it's not the truth.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where it gets interesting. That's where I think Elon's trying to take a small step back and be like, there are massive implications to this if the end goal is not objective truth and promoting humanity forward.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's very interesting to say the least.
Very well said. Ladies and gentlemen, you just got a peek behind the curtain with the mastermind, Eric Johnson, the founder of Trident Coffee, somebody who's well-versed, one of my closest friends and mentors, and has this unique ability to simply tinker with perspective and look at things from various lenses, not just his own, not just mine, not just his close circle, but to better understand things from a 5D perspective. And I think with that in mind, you know, take today's conversation with a grain of salt. It was explorative. I prompted him with unique conspiracies and ideations from recency bias within the news. But I hope that was fun for you to kind of go down some of these rabbit holes and play and explore in the realm of up and coming businesses and connective tissue associated with not only amazing cold brew coffee, but wellness and a humbling, unique journey towards trying to guide people towards their peak expression. Eric, where can people find you, man?
So on social media at Trident Coffee, and then personal is at Craft Your Legacy. So a lot of the stuff there for us is really promoting our health and wellness pieces at our tap rooms. We have 3 here in San Diego. So if you're in the San Diego area, we'd love to have you come by, get some amazing cold brew, functional drinks, keto protein donuts, gluten-free empanadas. So really around health and wellness, if you're looking for an amazing coffee shop that is aligned with your values of health and wellness, definitely give us a shout. And then we're on Amazon now with our functional coffee, and that's been very exciting to see it take off and be able to promote that and get it out to the masses.
Totally. Guys, if you're ever in San Diego, check them out. They're in Imperial Beach, Coronado, and Pacific Beach. And yeah, awesome functional cold brews in person with those keto donuts, awesome empanadas, great conversation, great connection, great ambiance. But more importantly, people that care about you, care about your journey, care about your health, your wellness, and your journey, not just in the short term, but the long term. So if you enjoyed my conversation with Eric Johnson today, please rate, review, and subscribe. Follow him at Craft Your Legacy. Follow him also at Trident Coffee, which is his team. Stay in contact with all things Trident. Follow myself at The Real Bryce Smith or at ALLSMITH Co. We loved spending time with you guys today. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Till next time, take care.